Hello there.
Previously on Monster Hunter World, last time we proved ourselves at the top of the food chain, slaying the king himself, Rathalos, and bringing down the desert tyrant Diablos. As if that wasn't enough, we once again helped repel the colossal Zora Magdaros. Now the hunt continues, and our next target lurks in the forest. It's time to track down and take out Puke Puke.
I remember getting blocked one time and joining the rob by an accident.
What is happening, lads? McKinn's 29 feckin' months. I can't even believe I'm streaming that long. That is mental. Thank you so much. That is so generous. You really don't have to keep subbing, but thank you so much for that, man. Jesus, 29 months. I'm not even going to try and equate that. I'm not going to do the math. Tank, what's happening? Hey, boyo. Are you Welsh? Maybe you haven't been French this whole time at all. Maybe you're Welsh and that's what it is. What is happening? Budgie back, buddy. What is the story?
Oh, look you!
Evening, Flemish.
Fuck me.
Okay, Melville, video mind blown. 100%, man. 100%. Why did that Cleo trait not pop? So I play my pirate game, picking up on some Buccaneers slang. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I bet my headphones were too loud and they hurt my Buccaneers. What? You know, I know the redeem went anyway, so it's fine. She's not in her bed, but I'll give her a treat. Hook, what is happening? Yeah, so the video that Hook is chatting about... Do you want me to treat that? Treat that while we chat. The video that Hook is chatting about is... I sent him one. It's Harsh Keller. He does a lot of Twitch and YouTube and Meld stuff. And Meld have brought out an update now where it uses AI actually in the streaming software itself. And if you say type in it, I want to make a counter designed like the Bluey logo that counts down an hour, and every time I get a sub it adds a minute, and within seconds it'll actually just add it to your stream. So see all the stuff I spend time doing the code for in Stream Elements to add as widgets and browser sources. It does it itself. It is mental. Now, obviously, I don't know what the resources are going to be like on your system. You know, is it something that's going to be like a whole pile of browser sources that's going to be really heavy to do? Or is it something that's going to be really light? Either way, it's going to be really cool. But it was a really good video. A really good video. I would advise people to go look at it as well. It's very, very interesting. I'd love to see what way it actually works out and how it reacts, or how it goes whenever everybody's doing it. Now, he said that there was 2 tiers of it. There's a free one, but they don't know what the limitations of it are going to be yet. And then there's going to be a paid subscription. So I'm assuming there's going to be, you can only have like 20 prompts a month or something if you're doing the free version. There's something to see in the future, but Windrose might be the game that we thought Skull and Bones supposed to be. Ooh, that's high praise. That's high praise. 2 years and 5 months. My God. We're toddlers, my kins. We're toddlers. Man. We can make them a meld. You get the URL. You can make it in the OBS too. Really? I didn't think it worked that way. I know that he said that you had the URL you could give to your buddies. I didn't know it would transfer directly to OBS, because where is the code sourced then? Where's it held? Because I don't think OBS has anything internal that will, you know, process the code. Because the way it works at the moment is everything's done on my side in Stream Elements, and then it's just displayed as a browser source through OBS. Where if you're going to do it that way, is Meld going to have to be open at the same time in order to get it to actually process it and then show it as a browser source? Don't know. Why was that so low? Is there something wrong with... No. Why is none of my actions working properly? Yep, so you can just take it and share it apparently, but I also have a question on where, where it's hosted. So maybe it can be shared with other Meld users, but I don't know if it can be shared in OBS. Ruthie, what is happening? Welcome on. What is the story? Riku plays games. Lucky it is. Swanning on in here. Swanning on in. I think my streamer bot is playing shenanigans on me. Wasn't me, it was you. It was me. So it wasn't you at all, Ruthie, it was me. God, I'm a son of a bitch. I'm a bastard. For anybody that doesn't know, Riku Plays Games is my buddy in real life, Ricky. He has recently started streaming. He did his 2nd stream last night, and he's fucking nailing it. He's playing through Kingdom Hearts at the moment. Oh, good sir, how are you? I am doing brilliant. If you could be ultimately amazing sound people and give him a wee follow, it'll be much appreciated. And if you can call him when he's streaming as well and give him a bit of abuse, that would also be appreciated too. Flamash, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate you. And Riku, if you want to follow a few people on here as well, they're all fucking cool and sound. And even Flamash is okay at times. I can do abuse. That is true. That is true. All abuse is welcome. I suppose Riku's friends with me, so he's used to it. I told him one day that sometimes people online think, oh, are you like using ChatGPT or something for them puns? And he was like, no, you do this at work as well. You just constantly come out with them and you're an absolute nightmare. And it's true. It's true. At my moments. Why are the words coming on the stream? What?
Such devastation!
If there's something...
This was not my intention!
If there's something coming on the stream, that's my OnlyFans you're on, McKins. That's the only time I come on stream. Watch back a chunk of your VOD, Riku. Great stream. Took sound, thank you. What's cooking? Good looking. Teddy, what's happening? Proud to be bald, brother. Proud to be bald. Bumble, what's happening? Bumble is Riku's brother as well in real life. If you give Bumble we follow as well, that'd be awesome. Nothing better than abusing Riku. This is true. This is true. Coming up on...
Acknowledge me!
Sounds like McKinn's has it sounds like you've closed captions. Is there an option on like the bottom bar or something that says CC? You can untick that because it's trying to, I think, put captions on me. Putting captions on me, how dare they? Sure, there's himself. Ian, what is happening? Welcome on. How are you getting on? Yeah, you put subtitles on. Now, the problem with my accent is the subtitles will never get it right.
Finding Leoric in another person's chat is not, shall we say, the rarest gym badge in Kanto. You'll usually find him somewhere making dad jokes, you know?
I don't appreciate that.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
Like, you're one of those, like, shiny ones that everyone has because they were, like, in a special drop event or something like that, you know?
Ian! Ian, how could you? How could you? Chasm, what's happening? Evening, hope you're well. Got Monster Hunter World installed, not played it yet. I have played through Wilds and now I've started World. World is, there's a lot more in it and it's great. It's great. Doing good, man. How's everyone? I am doing phenomenal. Doing great. The week is, we're on hump day. We're halfway over. That was the most scarily accurate of Leoric I've ever heard. This is true. This is true. I found out as well, Foodman Sam calls me Mr. Worldwide because any stream he goes on, I'm there. And I was like, okay, I suppose that's true. I'd argue Pokemon gym badges aren't rare in the world of Pokemon. No, they definitely are. And see, for someone who's actually signed up to the gym a couple of times, they don't give you any badges. Which, if I was a gym owner, I would give out badges every time someone defeats me. You could do that. Now, Barry's what's happening? It's got Monster Hunters don't hunt themselves. This is true. But we're doing a hook. We're doing a hook stream where we chat for like 45, 50 odd minutes first beforehand. Thank you folks for coming on as well. But really appreciate y'all. Oh yeah, I had it on right, wasn't it? Oh right. It won't discertain our accent at all. At all. Game, what's happening? Have you made the Iceborne yet? No, I have not. I have not. Although I have beat Rathalos. I think that was my main thing, just to beat Rathalos because it was annoying my happiness. I was eating his eggs and he wasn't happy about it. He wasn't happilous. 40 to 45 minutes? You mean for the entire stream? Yeah, that's true. That is true. Hook loves a wee break there, a wee yap. But yeah, imagine if you got in really, really good shape and you opened the gym and then people had to beat you at exercises and if they beat you, they got a gym badge. That would actually be pretty cool. We should do that. We should set up a gym. Or we set up a bar and we call it the gym. So when husbands go out and say, oh, I'm just going to the gym. And then they come back rubbered. And then the wives find out then that it's actually they've been going to the bar instead of an actual workout gym. It was on Waffles' wedding. I don't know who asked. I think it was Annihilator. Turned around to Waffles and said, do you know if there's a gym? And he's all, of course he is. And he pointed over to James and he's all, there he is, there's gym. Appreciate that. That's why I love Waffles so much. Do you think Pokemon gym leaders have a bunch of steroids like gym bros? I think they do, and they give it to their Pokemon as well. Also, did they just sit with a big bag of badges? Because, like you say, that must be very common for people to come on and start winning badges. Right, let's go. Is that very low? Seems very low. Pop it up, pop it up, pop it up. Oh, Brock's are just pebbles from outside. He goes, here's your gym badge. That's a pebble, sir. Shut up. Private session? Yes. Well, look at my privates. I think the criteria for a gym leader in Pokemon is to be either A, incompetent, or B, have a bag of badges, or C, just do not have any variation in your Pokemon. Just, they all have to be the exact same type. Well, oh man, they're rock Pokemon. What if someone with water Pokemon comes along? Sadness. Check out the Spring Blossom Fest. I don't really look like a man who appreciates a good Spring Blossom Fest, to be fair. The size of my sword. Fucking glass. We're going to go to the canteen and get some grub. Head to Windspire West. You've never said that about yourself. That is true. That is true. I normally say, look at my tiny dagger. And then I run away and go invisible because anybody who uses daggers is clearly a rogue. And rogues wear leather armor because it's made of hide. Look at my mail opener. But mail spelled M-A-L-E. Meow. Nom 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 nom. Old man. Oh, fighter of the hair man.
Whoa, 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 okay? This is the horny police. We're gonna have to shut this place down. We've been getting word that there's some real nasty stuff going on here.
Speaking of Jacksepticeye, did you see that he is going to be one of the co-producers on the Bloodborne animated movie? I've seen that today. People, I've heard mixed things about it, but because we haven't actually seen anything about it, I form no opinion. Apparently he's a massive Bloodborne fan, and that can't be a bad thing. You know, if he's a massive fan of the series, why would that be?
Hey, partner!
I think what happens with video game movies is they get people on who don't know the actual IP. I did not. He's come a long way from when I first seen him drop kicking zombies and pissing himself and dying light. He is. But, post a new quest. Wait, they need to post a new quest? Oh, I just need to go wherever I'm going, don't I? Head to Wisp. That place. World map. World premiere. But yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing that you have some... Like, it's when Henry Cavill did The Witcher. Because he was such a massive fan of the actual story of The Witcher, he corrected them on stuff, he added stuff, and I think it's only a good thing. And
It's
then
been a while since we've done this, huh?
been a while.
Wanna
Then
start
studios
by
took
taking a
over and
stroll around?
fucked it up. There's not, lady, there's nothing in my supply box. I'm not happy about it. I will check my other box. Go outside. You go outside. Bum 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 bum. Right, so I got herb. Herb. I think I have more herb down here. Herb. Herb. I should have honey. Honey. Turn them into mega potions. You mean the God Emperor, Henry Cavill? See, that it's only good as well that he is such a big Warhammer fan. He's now attached to that project. I know that there's a amount to craft, but I wasn't for going for that. I wanted to do it individually to make sure each one was good and tasty. Investigate the Wildspire Waste. You investigate the Wildspire Waste? Was I not here before? Feels like I was here before. Did you see the new Warhammer game announced? The sort of 2D pixelated one? It's kind of like Vampire Survivors. I seen that and I was like, ooh, that looks good. Vampire Survivors was addictive as fuck. Knowing they'll keep the same or very similar menus as a plus. I played Monster Hunter 2, try Rise graphically. This looks impressive. Yeah, it still looks great. This game came out... It was 2017 or something? I'm guessing. I don't even know off the top of my head. Already wishlist. Nice. Nice tank. And this game still plays and looks great. There's a couple of things they brought along in Wilds, which I like. I like the fact that you can... Ooh, large. Large diddles. I like the fact that you can target areas more precisely. You know, you have that focused attack. But at the same time, this game still plays great. Octopus, what is happening? On the hunt, love to see it. Welcome on. What is the crack? Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, so hump day is over and done with. We have cleared our Wednesdays, folks. We have 2 more days, and to be fair, I have them working from home. So we have 2 more days before the weekend. Discovered Barath. I've already killed that guy, so I don't even know what I'm looking for. What am I looking for? I already know that's happening. Blamash, look at you, bringing up that picture of that time I decided to grow my hair out. And... what the fuck is going on here? Lad, what are you at? It's like fucking toddlers. Cactuar! Kick him! Run! Run! He's gonna do his thing. What a prick. Are you back in the office again next week? I am in the office Tuesday and Thursday next week. So I have ordered myself some things for home. And they're arriving tomorrow. I got brand new arms for my monitors. Because the other ones I had, they were okay. But they were very, very cheap and they weren't very strong because one of my monitors is an ultra-wide. It just kind of sagged. So I have them ordered. I have a new boom arm for my microphone because it doesn't like to be moved. So I'm going to swap the boom arm over to the camera. And everything's just getting a wee bit of an upgrade. What? Is a cactuar? He's just being a prick. That's what he's doing. Good, thanks. Recently started Wilds, having a blast, but until last night, it's making me miss the world. I do, from what I hear from a lot of the people in the Monster Hunter community, they do prefer World. I really enjoyed Wild. I thought the food was the most delicious looking food I've ever fucking seen in my life. It made me want to lick my screen. I think the character being in this, I think it was a crossover event with Final Fantasy. And because World is now done, all of the events are now just canon, they're just here. See, the squad has good numbers in it. I kept just a little lacking in content. Yeah, that'll be the only thing. Parts and stories. The parts in the stories in Wild and they broke up or close-ups of food and intent. I know. Wilds is insane. See one of the first ones you make, and it's like bread with like a really goopy cheese and stuff. I'm like, oh. I don't know. You want me to investigate something, but you're not telling me what. I'm here. What am I investigating? No, we'll just take a wee walk over here. Cabbage, cheese, and honey. Mmm, nom, nom, nom. And then all the meat as well. All the meat they have in it just seems like it's, you know, on the bone, kind of just falling off. Phenomenal stuff. I am just after my dinner and I've just made myself hungry again. Juicy, juicy cabbages. There's two words you never thought you'd hear together. Juicy cabbages. Right, I don't know. Complete the expedition, right? Is it going to tell me where to go? Right, you're kind of telling me to go here. What's this? Stone. Is it the doodles I'm looking for? Is it? No, don't even, that's no good to me. I've already done that. Am I supposed to go around looking at all of the doodles? Not the doodles! Cabbage, cheese, and honey what? Yeah, in Wilds, if you went for one of the vegetarian options, it was like a big cabbage with cheese on it. Which technically isn't really vegan. It's vegetarian, but it's not vegan. Cabbage cheese, the movie. Actually, cabbage cheese sounds like some sort of venereal disease. I have some cabbage cheese. Can I have a cream for it? But yeah, I seen that video before I went live, and I was like, oh my god, that AI stuff is mental. And I know there's going to be backlash on it as well, because, you know, there's people that make their livelihood off it. Now, I make a lot of overlays and stuff, and widgets, but I've never charged for them, so it's not going to affect me at all. And he was showing as well.
This is a Rathian trail.
You're a Rathian trail?
Wait, what? That can't be right. Something's wrong.
Yes, I hear your voice and you know we're fucking near me, that's what's wrong. But he was showing that it can't really make art. So he said, can you make an alert that looks like Pikachu? And it was just this yellow ball. And he's all, that's about the extent of it.
Weird. What's going on?
Oh, I know we're in the story now. Oh, alright, okay.
Let's get that Puke.
I do not want to get the Puke. That sounds like... If I got the Puke, that I would have to get in like an antibiotic or something.
Watch yourself!
You watch yourself. Yeah, it makes a basic vector, which was happy to see. Yeah. So it means that if you're looking to get like emotes or something or proper art done, you will still go to an actual artist to do it. Which, to be fair, anyone I know that has got like really good art, they've gone to an actual artist to do it, which is pretty cool. Except me, I have pictures of myself with hair, like a fucking weirdo. Oh, still got him. He's away. Where the fuck you going now? You know, I might just sharpen him before I get over there because I'm gonna lose it. Die! Oh, he got me. This guy looks poisonous. Just a big purple tongue on him. Yep. No! I'm liking the longsword. It is quite good. Ooh, that's poisonous. You know what fights poison? Swords!
This Puke is way tougher than usual.
Get out of the poison, sir. Antidote. Not my uncle dote, it's my antidote. Was he eating them? Clever girl. What up? I'm just over here munching. What the fuck? Tell me, lads. You mad bastards. Nope. So as soon as I went to take a drink, you decided to charge me. You son of a bitch. And poison me again. You can now eat the... Wait, no, I just did. Right, he's away now. He's fricked. Oh, you lads are all mad. He's a good guy. I like these. Hi, Scoreside Sticks. Welcome, man. Tomahawks, the man. No one can take a title from him. This is true. How long are you here for, Tomahawk? How long are you going to grace us with your presence? I mean, if I were to guess, I would say it's probably about... Is that actually not going to play for me? Streamer bot, you're taking the puss. You're taking the fucking puss tonight. Noisy wee feckers. You're meant to say it's Solid Snake. I know, but I haven't. I'm in the middle of stuff in the game. Tomahawks, the man. And no one can take the title from him. Oh! Oh, no. How was Stars and Bars? Welcome on. Hold on, I'm just going to restart my streamer bot because for some reason it is acting aloof. Feckin' streamer bot. The wedding Stars and Bars was awesome. Awesome. Really, really good. Had so much fun. Me, Hook, and Annihilator danced like absolute maniacs. Let's have a wee picture. A wee picture. Let me see. There we go. There we go. But a crack. We loved the lads. We drank loads, we danced loads, we ate loads, and then like none of us had fucking hangovers the next day. It was really, really sweet. Well, that worked. For Stars and Bars. If you're not following, definitely give them a follow. Recently, you've been playing a lot of that Battle Golf, and you've just been going on and trolling people, and it's been an absolute... Delete your episode as punishment. No, Tomahawk, don't! Don't do it to me. We could Tomahawk we shouted as well as High Scores, High Stakes. Where the beef is ground, but the stakes are high. You can use that one if you want. Hello. See Lurky playing Battle Golf the other night. Oh, it's good crack. It's good crack. I enjoy it. He was just on trolling boys, and they were just all, oh, we're going to kick you, but they never did. And he was like, that's a bit. Right, I've lost track of what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be hunting down this Pookie boy, this lad. Don't know where he went. Am I to follow these? No, that's old Rathian scales. How you keeping? Just back at yoga? Off to walk the dog? Yoga? That's a bit of a stretch. Hey. I started doing some more exercise. Like, I'm really only doing lunges at the moment, but I tell you what, it's a big step forward. Love the t-shirt. Ah! Thundercats. Appreciate it. But Lion-O! What we do about Mumra? Snarf, snarf. Quiet, Snarf. I am Lion-O, Lord of the Thundercats.
Ancient spirits of evil, transform this decayed form to Mumra, the ever-living.
Fucking love that TV show. But I'm just yeah, that's all I've got. That's all my skills. Just I just got my dad jokes. Such an you know what I loved about Thundercats as well? The animation still stands up really, really well, and it's because it wasn't done like a normal 80s TV show. It was an actual anime studio that animated the Thundercats. It was the first proper Western anime. The opening, fucking top tier. The thing was stellar. Even the story in it actually had a progression rather than resetting to the same point at the end of every episode. Where, oh where, is my Pookie? See, up here's, I think it's a Rathian's nest. Look at this graph! Look at it! Stop locking things in the room for things. Things and stuff. The thing is as well, see the band that Waffles had on? I know I was talking about the last time, they were fucking... Was it the Humble Earthworm? The Humble Earthworms. Fucking brilliant. It was the first band that they met. I think they met at the first band they went to see, and they got them for the wedding. And the problem is, me and Hook and Niall and all were all out dancing. We're like, right, we're fucking wrecked now. We'll go back and get a drink. And then you're walking off the dance floor, and they just come out with another banger, and you're like, oh, we're gonna have to dance that. Glass. Mum Ra wasn't a bad guy. Thundercats. This is true. They were the aliens. I did love the more recent cartoon of the Thundercats, not the Cartoon Network one, but the one I think came out in like late 2000s, and it was a young Lion-O, but it was about the Thundercats, and then it heavily hinted, I don't know if I ever confirmed, but it heavily hinted that it was in the same universe as the original Thundercats, just decades later, and he was named after his ancestor, Lion-O. I don't know where this guy went. I think I lost 14 stone that day, and my voice. My voice still hasn't recovered, it's still a bit sore. I just put my drink to the edge of the dance floor. Easy access, man. You just about all the hacks. Got a few comics of Thundercats recently. Ooh, very nice. I have bought a lot of manga. So, like a lot of free run there beside me. I have Berserk, I have Alice in Borderland, and I've started doing the Transformer ones as well. You've just earned points, collect now. Don't know what it is, earn points, but fair play to me. So he was just here the whole time. Unfortunately, I can't stick around. Got an early day tomorrow. I've been working on my phone, just fell asleep. Doctopus, thank you very much for coming on. Could we get a wee shout out for Doctopus as well, please? If one of the mods could be so kind. I appreciate you coming on, bud. Look, thank you, you absolute stellar mod. He ran away again. I'm taking this fucker's tail off. No, stop spitting on me. You're only allowed to spit on me when I ask for it. Ooh, flipping size that doesn't I'll put you to good work, buddy. A summer wind swing on me. Needless to say, I'm not pleased. Are you getting married? Or is someone else getting married? If so, me and Hook are now official Twitch streamer wedding crashers. We will come to your wedding. We will dance on your dance floor. Weddings are super fun. They are super fun. Me, Hook, and Niall will just land to your wedding. See if you're worried about people going out and dancing. We got it covered. No, I don't think I converted them to potions. Oh no, I think I did. Oh, there's mega potions. Talking about Lyric. I think it's usually the weddings, they're in such an extent. Happy to be proven wrong this time. Oh, definitely. It was good getting down and seeing Waffles and all, meeting James and all of the lads. Game's quite loud compared to you, man. It was very, very low earlier, so... Just gonna readjust that. Pop it down a bit. There we go. Sorted. We also turn up at funerals and look on from a distance so people think the dead person had a second life. Yep. We claim to be their long lost sons, make them make them look like absolute pimps. Feel like, I'm his son, illegitimately. Look at your tail, it fell off, dickhead. It's Mrs. Tomahawk's friend's wedding. She's like a second tier friend that way. Right, okay. So you didn't answer, do you want us to land down or not? You know, bring us and we will provide the entertainment. Imagine if that was... That'd be quite cool, wouldn't it? If you could hire the likes of me, Hook, and Niall, they'd land the weddings just for the banter. Banter Bros. We just thought of the name and everything. Right, last time I cleared off for a bit, and then he just landed back. Is he on them? Oh, he is on the map. Oh, what's that, Tom? Oh, what the fuck happened there? Why are you hitting me? Fucker stoned. They are hitting me. What is your problem, lads? Friend, longevity more than anyway. I'll dox us all. I'll dox us all to come save me. We'll pretend. We won't even pretend that we know anybody. We'll just land and just be all like, "Ah, no, fucking Sheila." Sheila was saying to us to land down. It'd be wild funny if Sheila was an actual person that was involved in that win, and Tom would be like, "What the fuck? What's this guy on about?" Motherfucker was there on the thing. No, it's Diablos. I don't want him. I thought I seen him on the map, and now he's like disappeared again. Bet you he shows up back down here again. The absolute scroat.
You absolute scrout.
Did I kill these guys? Oh, I do. Or I can. Should I though? Oh, they drop stuff. Sorry, lads. Tonight, you die. No, they've poisoned me. Can't even. Oh, I can target them. Fucking bastards. Plus, all the husbands either in their football or mountain biking, and they don't care about games or speedrun strats. Like, what's wrong with them? What's the matter with them? Eh? No. We'll swap it out for gum. I don't think I need that. I do need health though, because I'm getting destroyed by these wee motherfuckers. Right, lads. Unfortunately, now you have to die. I say mental illness, or T says they have social lives. Social lives? I mean, outside where the kidnappers live? Right, he is away underground. I have been poisoned yet again. What's herbal medicine do? Ooh, piece of candy. No, I don't want the sleep knife. Leave this item. Yes. What are you? I can left the material. No, I already had that. No. Oh, there he is. Where? Cotton Eye Joe, where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? If it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, I'd been married a long time ago. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? I hope he's like Rathian as well and loses his ability to poison if he loses his tail. If you could stop moving, that would be wonderful. If you could stop spitting at me, that would be even better. We swallow here, we don't spit. Good singing. That looks suspiciously like this. Oh my god. He'll make a killing singing that song alive.
Witness the awesome power of the ring. You cannot pass. Bilbo Baggins. Do not take me for a cheap conjurer of tricks.
What a bunch of nerds. That was damn good. I appreciate it, thank you. Someday they will look for someone to do a mediocre Ian McKellen impression, and I'll be there. I'll be like, yeah, here we go. Fun fact, at my wedding, a girl broke her collarbone falling from the dance floor. The DJ thought playing Cotton Eye Joe was the best tension. I appreciate that, DJ. He did right. He did right. That's not the grey in his beard. He can make a Vincent Gandalf. Well, Flamash, you know, sometimes the words you say hurt my feelings. Other times they make me horny. Today was both. Oh, gotcha. We're in the red now, baby. We're in the red now. I forgot my buttons. Stop flapping with you. I've actually forgotten my buttons. Fuck. Mega potion. See how I dodged that? Skill. 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 Here, when Waffles comes in, we need to get Rock the Boat. I don't think we did Rock the Boat. We didn't. The absolute staple. That was the button I wanted to press. It was R2 and triangle. For fuck's sake, and now we're about to lose our red. Fucking lose it. Right, you know what? We're running. We're running. We are just walking slightly faster than we were previously. It's a good thing, surely. It is. There he is. You son of a bitch. We've wasted it. Well, it just goes down to the next one, right? Okay. We're up in there! Slice! Slice and dice, baby. Slice and dice. That was rude. That was even ruder. It wasn't a Rockabouts crowd, it wasn't. To be fair, it wasn't even normal wedding music. The guy was playing fucking Shania Twain. He fucking nailed Eminem. And because none of us really all knew the words, we just kind of waved arms with it like John Cena. Pretended we did. But he absolutely nailed Eminem. I have a video of him well out in the crowd. Just belting out tunes like an absolute legend. That's the most agreeable thing you've ever said. Who was it in Hook's chat last night? We were talking about something. It was Indiana Jones films, and we were saying how the first 3 are great, and after that they're trash. And everyone in chat was in agreement. And we were like, yeah, yep, everybody, yep. First 3 were great, last 2 were shite. And we were all like, oh my god, this is the first time in history of Twitch chat has all been in agreement. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, where's Flamash? Where's Flamash? See, we all knew you'd have a contrarian opinion. Fucking, you do not disappoint, Flamash. You're a man of principle. Still here, not long, and from rugby coaching and drenched. Oh, fair play, man. My wee boy does rugby now as well. He plays with the school. Still good for him, but it's nowhere near as good do. It's a bit too dark. Couldn't have turned around and he said, couldn't turn around and say, you know what, I agree with everything you guys said. Oh, no. No. We were in unison, it was harmony. We all sat about, hugged and sang Kumbaya. And, yeah, third one's okay, look. It's alright. It's alright. Love it. What age group is he? He is 15 now in April. Two's me. Four's better than I remember, but slightly better than 2. Come on, don't you be at it. Don't you be at it. Right, where is that dumb bird? I think the one there in space. Is that the one where they hit the satellite with the car? Yes. So he started... He was doing GCSE PE and he was told he had to do a sport, so he picked rugby. So he's learned rugby from scratch, doing it with the school, and then he's got on the school team. And he's also flat out in the gym, so he's an absolute tank. I'm worried that someday he's going to beat me up. Might see you next year then. Your son will be moving to the under 16s. Yeah, he probably will be. Go rugby. With the oldest. I don't think he's there yet, but he hasn't broken anything yet, which is his one claim to fame. Mike, what is happening? Obnoxious seagull noises. For some reason, the walk-ons don't seem to be... They're intermittently working. And it perplexed me because I've restarted StreamerBot and it hasn't made a difference. Phew. I played for over 10 years. My God. Fair play to you, man. It's so loud. It is, and it seems to get louder every time, even though it's not my intention. We'll restart StreamerBot. More time. How do Mike? I am doing phenomenal. I'm doing really well, buddy. What about you? What's the crack? Hamstrings are the only thing I broke. That's not too bad then. There's boys in his class with concussions and broken collarbones and broken tailbones and everything. For anybody in my chat as well as not following Mike Does Audio, give that man a follow. He puts on a phenomenal stream. Final Fantasy VIII speedrunner, and on occasion also does audio. But playing, you've just finished Breath of Fire 3. What is next in the RPG list? And where is my Pookie? That is not a dirty thing. That is the fucking animal trying to kill. As per usual, how you... There we go. That did it. That fixed it. You happy now, Mike? Yeah. Be gonna get hurt when you pull out. That's yep. And if you don't, that's how babies are made. Dark Souls 2 now. Oh, that's right. You started Dark Souls 2. Took us all over that. Tell you what, when he was talking to me about playing Dark Souls 2, I was like, I don't know. I've heard that 1 and 3 are better. I've heard that you problems with 2 and blah, blah, blah. He played it. Fucking loved 2. He absolutely loved it. Oh, thank you. He absolutely loved Dark Souls 2. I think Dark Souls 1's still his favourite, but I was one of them. I was a bad person. I was casting an opinion on a game I hadn't actually played. Leoric, you son of a bitch. It's good so far. Yeah. There's certain things that he loved about it and certain things he would change, but overall I think he enjoyed the game. I loved it. Looking forward to see you play through it. Yeah, definitely. It's going to be an interesting one, especially coming from Dark Souls 1 as well. I enjoyed Dark Souls 1. I like that one. I liked how the maps interwove and opened up shortcuts everywhere. And he's back up here. You son of a bitch. I'll say nothing. Yeah, no, don't want to sway opinions. Yeah, oh, definitely. And we're not saying any spoilers or anything too. The one thing I will say about that wedding that I thought was quite funny is people calling us by our Twitch names. And they're all, oh, there's Leoric and there's Hook. And I was like, no, just call me Joe, because in real life that sounds kind of weird. Now, Niall, he's grand. He's Annihilator, so, you know, his name is in there anyway, so it's grand. But it was at that point I was like, I kind of wish I'd just used my own name for Twitch. Because it's fine whenever I go on to people's streams and they call me it. But then when you're in real life, you're just like, oh, it sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? I think we're quite similar opinions on games that we both played. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Right. This guy is taking the piss. He's flying about the place, and he's not coming back to where I was. Where the fluff are you?
7 minutes. 7 minutes is all I can spare to play with you.
See, I had set that up earlier. I was all, Tomac, oh, how long can you stay with us tonight? And then that would have played, but StreamerBot wasn't playing ball. I broke my own bot, for fuck's sake. I'm glad yeah, to be honest, although I'm going to keep trying to get just Mike forever. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Michael. What about the game? The game V's? The team did a fantastic job. I love more about the game V's. What? V's? Teddy, yo. A mic check. The fact that you do audio as well makes that even better. Because Kai was on about the other day that she called her Mike, and it confused everybody. Trying to get Hook for 4 years, or just the Hook. But you still get it as well when you go into people's chats and they're all, Hookie? Hookie? Is that your name, Hookie? And you're like, no, it's just Hook. And I get called everything, but to be fair, I don't really mind. Because no matter what people call me, I'm like, it's a fake, it's my fake internet name, it's fine. I will not take offense to anything you call me. Except when I go into Flimwashes, he sees the L-E-Y, you know, the orc spelling, and he pronounces it dickhead. Which is an unusual spelling, definitely. But you know what, to each their own, it must be, you know, a local dialect. Where the fuck is this stupid thing? See if he's gone away to heal somewhere, I'm going to fucking stab him. Right, where are you? He flew off the map earlier. He was floating about the place like an absolute maniac. I cannot see him on the feckin' map. Oh, versus. Right, okay. Right, I get you. Short for versus Leework. Well, I'm not cool. I'm not with it. I'm not hot like you. I don't go around talking about the 6-7s and the skibbity toilets. You know, I'm kind of, there's times I look back and think, see if I just stuck Joe on my original streamer title's name, because it was like, oh, I don't want to get doxxed, I don't want anybody to know, and I'm like, fucking everybody knows anyway, it's grand. What did they go to do? Apart from that time Hook showed up and tried to hug me and I had to punch him. Apart from that, it's all good. That was a funny bit of the wedding too, Mrs. Waffles. We walked in, she goes, oh, you're real! And I was like, fuck. Of course I'm real. I'm not a figment of your husband's imagination. He doesn't talk about imaginary bald Irishmen with beards that look very similar in description to him. Except a lot fatter. Right. Where is this stupid bird? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Right. Are they going to take me to where it is? Or are they going to be... No. Hey, look at this thing over here. They get distracted like a fucking dog. Squirrel. Yes, I am proud to be bald. That is true. I've never, ever, ever had hair. Ever. Except the time I grew it out for Resident Evil 4. And then shaved it off immediately. Because Flemish did not like change. Just about to watch the episode of The Boys. Ooh, I have to get stuck into that. I enjoy that. I enjoy the boys. Playing with the boys. Where is the thing that I'm supposed to murder? Same. Fair fox. Fair play. Playing with the boys. Stuck in my head now. Kenny Loggins. Oh, it's like a room, but look my dog. Look my dog. Look my dog. I don't want to discover that thing. See if this fucker is in here. I'm going to stab him. No, I don't want to go looking for that one. Well, to be fair, like, that's what I'm doing anyway. I have a longsword. Of course I'm going to stab him. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure he has a place where he rests. But where the fuck is that? Excuse my French. Like, what is in here? Nothing. My timer is going to run. Actually, I don't even think there is a timer in this. Return and accept assignment. Oh. Dumbass. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It did the same thing with Rathlos on me. Love this game. I fucking hate it. I was already there fighting it. And it's like, oh, you have to go back and accept the quest now. Your woman is constantly phoning me. Constantly on the blower, chatting away, and she's like, can't even turn around and say, oh, can you, do you want to start the quest remotely? No, you gotta come back and talk to me. I come back, we need to have words, have a conversation about it. Needs to be officially put through as a task on the booking system, otherwise it doesn't count. I don't know what the difference. I don't know why there's a difference between paying me points and paying with money. Meow. Clearly all the flavors in the wee cardboard hat they sit on the end. Because I'm a master chef and that's how food works. And see as an elderly person, just watching him shove that food in himself. Fucking, the heartburn is going to be immense. Although, to be fair, I had a friend that died of heartburn, so it's a bit sad. Can't believe Gab is gone. Assigned. Invader in the waste. What a waste of my time. Do not try and shame me, Hook. Do not try and shame me, the hooky. Swanning on here. Oh, that was the other thing as well. It was quite funny. I get... See, if I'm not driving, I get car sick. Normally, it's not too bad. I'll be fine in most scenarios. But Hook decided to drive on the bumpiest back-arse country roads in the fucking world. And he was bouncing about. I was turning green. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be sick. And this wasn't even... We hadn't even been drinking yet. This was pre-drinking. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna be sick. Yeah. Winding the window down. You're right. I'm grand. Slow her down. Cam. Oh, good laugh. Here, I didn't make the roads, but it was the speed more than anything. The speed, let me put it this way, the speed in which you bounced me up and down was about to make me puke. It was also funny the fact I forgot to bring trousers for the next day. So we're walking about in this wee Irish town, and I'm in a pair of shorts. Jeremy Clarkson, speed. Oh fuck, Rathalos or Rathian. See, I'm starting to know who they are. Ralala Rathalos. I don't want to start a fight with him. To be fair, though, I do enjoy Clarkson's Farm. That is a show I really like watching. Bum. Why am I going way up here? What's up here? What's this? Dun. If you make me climb down the same way, I'm gonna fucking crack up. Honey. Bum. Can I? No! Ah, for fuck's sake. There was nothing else up here. There was no other reason for me to go up there. None whatsoever. I would love that show. He could make a show, but he could. And here we have a stamp. And I'm going to put it in the top left-hand corner. Clarkson's good crack. But I think it was all three of them in Top Gear that made that show top tier. I'm not even a car person. I know very little about cars, but I watched the way at Top Gear because it was... can I just get past? I don't want to fight. I just want to get past because that's the only way. It is the only way. Rathian footprints? No. Rathian footprints? You're joking me. You mean footprints of the big thing that I had to just squeeze past? I had to suck it on as I tried to get past them? You're joking. Same here. I like cars, but I'm not car. I know very little about cars. I know they have wheels and they go vroom vroom. I know how to change tires, and I know maintenance. But if ones are, oh, did you see the new 8-liter Tamagotchi TI? I'd be like, okay, that's a joke. I'd be all, What's the VRAM size on it? Can I play Crisis? Oh, buddy. Ah, no, fuck off. What are you attacking me for? Fucking Pookie just ran past.
The Tamagotchi TI. Kansas champion!
It looks like everything's back working again now. Fight time. Jesus, that's definitely working. Fight him, not me. You big fucker, you. I thought that was danger. It was healing. To be fair, though, sometimes when you go into the doctor, healing looks a lot like danger. We have ads! You two just fight it out amongst yourselves. I'll just stay over here and I'll just watch. I will be the Monster Hunter cuck that I am. I'll just watch you two get out. Bum, bum, bum. I wonder if I could just climb up here. No! Back off, would you? I was going to drop down on him, but you ruined it. You ruined it. Just fight each other. Have it out. Me and the cat will just kind of chill over here. They're not saying nothing more about it. Oh, he's away now. He's away now. I'm sure there's himself away. These two are still going at it. I'm Batman. Where? I don't care where he went. He's up there. He's both going the same direction again. Are they? This is like all the cool kids going off and hanging out without me, but they're not telling me where they're going, and I'm like, oh, I just feel left out now. Both of them cleared off in the same direction. Motherfuckers. Bum 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 bum. So new, but so look at them. It's like I just found it. I just found me Pookie cheating on me. Disgraceful. Disgraceful. And so then new parts, not parts, but new accessories for me desk coming tomorrow, so hopefully it should help me keep it a bit tidier. I mean, there's less stuff. I have a big kind of box, hey, coming, so so I can store all my cables. Because I try and cable tidy as much as possible. And I had a lot of them kind of sticky fabric things, kind of they're Velcro, the kind of Velcro sticky things. FYI, Velcro's a complete ripoff. And they just after a while, they just used the stickiness used to go on them and they used to collapse. So I'm hoping this box will help fix it, and then I can just extrude my cables from it. Why does everything sound sexual? Pokey. I need to sharpen my sword. Innuendo. Innuendo. I have a Pookie. I'm going to milk it. Let's go. Still got you fecker. Look at him slobbering and everything like dirty hiding you. Oh, you thought you got me, but you didn't, because I moved out of the way. And that's how movement works. Where were you? Let's go. No! Stop! Got his tail! Got your tail, you fecker, you. And he poisoned me. Antidote. Not Uncle Dote. Fucking dare you. You creep. Let's go. Get him. Did he? I went down there. Got him licking the fucking walls. That's new Bond movie. Wall liquor. Dun, dun, dun. I'm exhausted. So tired. So tired. Fuck. Perfect now. Perfect now. There's no antidotes. Starlight, what is happening? Welcome on. How are you getting on? I think I might be dying because I can't get rid of the poison. Vitality mantle, will you save me from my poison? Starlight, what is the crack? What are you up to yourself these days? Bum, 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 bum. Are you still playing the Kingdom Hearts? Where did he come out of? Who? Oh, that's the one I'm fighting. There's so many dinosaurs. Ooh, what's this? Water moss. Always playing Kingdom Hearts. Nice one. I love the Kingdom Hearts games. I think it's phenomenal that if you go back and play Kingdom Hearts 1, Squall, or Leon as they call him in that game, is voiced by David Boreanaz, who is Angel out of Buffy, which is brilliant. That's when they went through their phase of wanting to get celebrities on the voice games. There was Haley Joel Osment as well, voicing Sora. Kingdom Hearts is getting a lot of love these days. It is. It is. I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see it. Kingdom Hearts 2 was phenomenal. That was my favourite in the series. Kingdom Hearts 3 was good. I just don't think I enjoyed it as much. Wait, where is this jabroni? Fuck! Burton! What is happening to them? I am well aware that was quite loud. Turn you dynamite. Burton, what is happening, you sexy beast? Welcome on. What is the story? Thank you very much for choosing me for your raid. How did you get on with the rest of RuneScape? Love that series. You need to try it. It is, man. It is very good. It's long and there's a lot of bits that go back and kind of repeat themselves on it, but it's very, very good. Burton, what is the crack? How are you getting on? Are you pooping whilst you're talking to me? Because I constantly go into his. It does jump scare me a little bit. I turned the volume down a little bit there. Just vibing. Like to grab some food. How's the form? Not too bad. We had a very, very deep discussion earlier, so I said to Burton in the middle of a stream, and I normally don't do it. I know it's not appropriate, but I said, Burton, can I ask you a personal question? And he looked and he thought about it and he said, yeah, go ahead. And so, what's the best biscuit? And he hit me with a fucking caramel digestive, and I was like, that's solid. But apparently there's a white chocolate Twix now I gotta try, and I'm gonna put the research on it. Please do recommend it to many people and they enjoy it. 100%. So, anybody raids in the me as well goes to my Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame! And there's Burton up there in green, Burton TTV. Anybody not following Burton, he is a fellow Northern Irish streamer. A wonderful man. A very, very entertaining man. And absolute dote. So if you follow him, you're in for a really, really good time. He's a legend. Anybody on Burton stream doesn't know me? As you could tell from the horrific noises coming out of my mouth, I am also from Northern Ireland. We're playing through Monster Hunter at the moment on Wednesday nights, and we're playing Neo, which is a Soulslike, on Thursdays and Saturdays. And Neo is kicking my ass. White chocolate Twixes are good. It's a good shout. See, I'm hearing all the good things about the white chocolate Twix. I'm going to have to give it a go. Twix are underrated. They are. You know, basket I've really got back into recently as well that I must is wagon wheels. Fucking love a good wagon wheel. The Ken's knows. Ken's knows by. He does. Fucking knows. Knows rightly. Sound off in chat. What's your favourite baskets? Fuck, it's Rathian. It's not Pookie Pookie. Fucking Rathian. Where did my Pookie go? Where? Oh, there is there. He's healing. He's healing. Fuck. And Rathian is following me out. Shit. Shit. Fuck you, Steve. He's away that way. Just don't look back. Don't look back in anger. Here comes the food that's bad for you. 100%, man. 100%. If it's good for you, it's not fun. Poison you? Poison you, dickhead. See all that health you just accrued? I just poisoned you. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? I don't know if they got a remaster. I know that there was a collection that came out for Kingdom Hearts. But if you like Final Fantasy, you like Disney, Kingdom Hearts is the way to go. It might be something as well you could play and Teddy could watch as well. I think he'll quite buzz off it because of all the Disney characters. Especially Kingdom Hearts 3 with it, like Toy Story and Frozen and stuff. The other thing I found with 3 was the enemies got very tanky. The remixes. Oh yeah, some of the... Yeah, some games they did. You're right. They did in the actual collections as well. Because it was all the 1.5 and 2.5. You're right. Stream is chill today, man. Looking wild work. Now I want the Twix. Get us all Twixes. Look at that Rathian is an absolute monster. I'm just going to let him do his thing. No! Why are you running at me for? I didn't do anything. I didn't even touch your niblets. Fucking... Fuck off, Rathian. Right, you know what? I'm just going to run away. Used to hash it out. Leave me out it. Hi, so me and Hook were kind of laughing about it earlier whenever Horace Keller brought up that video about Meld. And we were just like, for fuck's sake. And it happens every time I come up with the solution to something to Meld, they fix it like the week later. So now that whole AI widget thing, we're like, that just fucking blows our YouTube channel out of the fucking waters. But then again, I don't know if a lot of people are going to switch over from OBS for it. I didn't even put a redeem. I didn't even put that in the pop-up. I just decided. You just stood on me, you giant prick. I do not wish to fight the Rathian because he is a penis. He is a giant, spiky, poisonous penis. No! Away with you. They're so welcoming. Letitia is live. This is true. This is true. This is my weekend name. This is what I now go by. What is happening? We just got chased by a Rathian there. Wasn't very nice. There be monsters. What is happening? What is the crack? I don't speak a word of Irish, so I would have to Google Translate that. But welcome in. What is the story? Actually, not that I wouldn't be able to read Irish and speak it, but it was things like Gurmayogat, Kajeshian, Oscalendoris, Dunendoris. You know, it was the very, very bare basics I learned in P7 as a kid. There should be able to include my mother-in-law. She is a scary monster. And she watches me on Twitch. Oh, God. We're riding. We're fucking riding. A+ for effort. Brace. We're bracing. We're bracing. We got thrown off, but we
Pick yourself up and try again.
There's a fucking Rathian beside us. A second, this. It's an A-star's an American C. It's also yes in Spanish. And a pirate's favorite letter, C.
That's called democracy.
Because they don't know the alphabet, I only know 25 letters of the alphabet. I don't know why. Not from Ireland, but I learned for fun a few years ago. Oh, very nice. You know, it's something I really should look into myself. Because a few people I work with, and a few people I know, like the internet and stuff, would speak Irish, and I'm just like, you know, I'm missing out, I'm missing out. I need to learn my native language. So fair play to you. Even more respect, definitely. Jesus! Starlight, you hurt me with my sounds. I speak American. That is the hardest of languages to learn. I wish I knew that one myself. I had to go back and learn it around COVID time, got cancelled and never bothered since. I started learning a bit of Italian in Duolingo, and it got to the stage I couldn't speak it, but I could read it fine. I could read it and understand it on paper. So I just, and then they started bringing in a whole pile of ads, and I was like, nah, I don't even want to continue this. I had like so many hundreds of days streaks, and it was wonderful. I just completely must. Fuck that. First thing I learned was response. Have a clue. Now, there's an American, she's not American, she lives in America, but there's an Irish streamer that I found recently called Bwaheen. She has a section of her stream where she'll speak Irish for like 5 minutes. Really, really cool bean. Language, the best language I've heard. It's the only language, the best language I've heard. Most people researching this is true. My TV speaks American. I hate that the Orange Man voice is the one in my mind. What? Oh, right, okay. I get what you're saying. The only language, the best language I've heard best people are researching this. I walked up to a man the other day, tears in his eyes. Got him. I hate it too. So easy to do, I know. It's where's an air spar and turn around. Every now and again I get a little... Fucking flange! Turn around, every now and then I get a little bit lonely, I need to turn around. You ask yourself the question, are you hunting the monster or the monster hunting the monster? It's both. It's both. Rathian is giving us grief. I'm trying to kill this thing, and Rathian is trying to kill both it and me, and there's a strong chance Rathian's going to win. Uncle Flange, what is the story? Back me, that's deep. It's not the first time you said that, Hook. Oh, I think cutting off his tail kind of fucks up his poison a bit. Everything is. What is everything? I know. There's so much traveling in this. This is the first one that has just... It keeps wandering about the place. Want the Pookie? Love the Pookie. Hope you are. I'm doing great, Blanche. Doing phenomenal. Right. I'm hoping Rathian kind of fucks off a wee bit now. I'm done with his shenanigans. It's about a shout. Here, Pookie.
You should be applauding my professionalism!
I have never been professional. I've always been an absolute travesty. I have not been concentrating on doing my special moves at all. Well, actually, that's a lie. I've been trying to, but it keeps wandering off on me. I stick to his ass, I should be fine. Ah, still nailed him with. Nice. Whack in the face. Meowch, I need to recover my health. Meow, what do you think you're doing? Oh, he skipped out in the last one. No! Can I lift you up? Been up to much this week? Not a huge amount. Just been working. I did my office days Monday, Tuesday, so I don't have any more office days now until next week. Which is wonderful. Means I get to catch all the cool people's streams during the day. Oh, no, don't mean to have that guy. Oh, yes, we're in the red, brother. We're in the red. Let's go. Oh, not you, not you, not you, not you. No, no. No, sit, Ubu, sit. Bad dog. This guy's shot. Oh, yes. We nailed it. We nailed it. Did he clear off again? He fucking well did. Right, lad, you can just fake off. I am going to lift my shit. Look at him. Look at him acting a menace. We are going to go lucky. I also should probably use my white... Whoa, shit. My whetstone. Which is like a normal whetstone, but much wetter. Anime as fuck, it is. I need ideas for a new tattoo. I want to continue on my sleeve, my absolute nerd sleeve. I'm trying to think of what to get next. No, don't run away. Come back so I can stab you. Meant to say? Stab, stab, stab. All the years I've played this, I've never touched the longsword. I kind of thought I would go for it. Wow. There we go. I'm enjoying the combos on it, and see when you level up that bar and kind of go for the jumping move. Although I have... Steam Train? What time do you call this? My goodness. I don't think the Nullberry actually does fuck all. If I could put on my mantle, that might help with the poison. Yeah, it's kind of just healing it at the same time. We'll just got to wait for it to run out. Steam Train, what's the story? How you getting on? Love it. Like to see it. Like to see it. So correction, he can still poison me. Pookie feathers? Yes, I think I will. And he flies off again like the fucking coward he is. Ooh, is this an antidote one? Nope, sleep herb. There's a wild lot of monsters in this one. I know it's Monster Hunter, but there's a wild lot of monsters in this map trying to kill me. Alright, so I've made 3 antidotes. Cool beans. It seems as well the sword that I've upgraded it needs to be sharpened quite a bit. See him. Look at him up there. Flappy bastard. Steam trim! But Flange, how has your week been? That's the real question. That's what we want to know. How is Phil? If anybody doesn't know, Phil is Flange's tortoise, and he is the actual streamer. No monsters in this one. Watch by Monster Hunter. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You know what? It's something I would have done to you. Fair play. He's not happy with me. I thought I would have clipped him just at the bottom there, but not a chance. Stop running away! Jesus, would you? Oh, I got whapped. I got whapped. Relatively slow. Felt super unproductive, but had a one-on-one with manager today, and she said I couldn't be doing any more, so maybe I'm actually be more productive. Maybe you've been doing more than you should be doing for a long time, and now you've just gone down to everyone else's normal level. And you feel bad about it, but everyone's like, nah man, you're still fucking smashing it. But them two are just having a wee bitch right there. Phil's currently doing laps of his house. He's whinging because he wants some more leaves. Oh, take a leave out of his book. Tell me needs to branch out more. Just leave him be. Rathin, would you feck off? You're an absolute torture. I deserve that. I don't want to kill Rathin. I want to kill this guy. I've already murdered his tail. Look at him running away again. But you're going to be fighting something on the way out. Oh, he got slapped. Slapped up the back. You go for you. He'll go if you kill him. That's true. That's true. That is the basis of this game. Murder all the things. And then wear them. The main problem I think I have with Pookie is 1, his name, and 2, because he just keeps clearing off on me whilst trying to murder him. It's almost like he doesn't want to die, and to be fair, I think that's what I'm covered. I missed! That's how fast we're talking. Well, he's tortoise, so it's like 38 million miles an hour. But it looks slow because it's moving so fast. Here we have a tortoise.
Okay, partner?
Honestly, fasting spec. We had a terrapin and it grew. Look, he was quite big, and he was quick. You think, oh, they're going to be very, very slow? No. They move fast. They swim fast and they fucking move fast. Fuck off, Rathan. I swear to God. You keep that up, I'll go over and kick your man legit. Jesus Christ, what you got? You son of a bitch. You're not. I have to try and stab this thing so I can. Swear to God. Swear to God. Rathan, you are a wee bitch. Got any dung? Well, my dinner hasn't been finished digesting yet, so give me a couple hours and I'll get back to you. Quest complete where Rathan's just going mental here in front of the camera. Fuck's sake. It's like, I love it. See, whenever someone's playing a game and they come on the hook stream and he's all, how'd you find the game? And I was all, normally they go onto like Steam or their console and click on it. He's all, sweet.
Investigation progress. Rathian, I wasn't even investigating him. He just kept coming over and kicking me. Alt F4. I think the problem is, when everyone thinks about turtles and stuff, they just see the big massive sea turtles and them slowly moving. Hey, it's working.
Oh, excuse me? No. What do you say? No. No. I'm not gonna give you a treat if you call me that. What do you say?
Please. 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 Bitch, please.
I am enjoying the fact that this very serious council meeting that has now taken place is being overrun by dogs asking for treats. Leo, my darling, would you like a treat? There she goes, the goodest of girls, eating her num-nums. Why are you flipping me the bird? Jesus Christ. He's an angry elf.
The field team reports that they're observing a shift in monster behavior, namely invading other territories. On top of this disturbing information is the sudden appearance of older and more powerful monsters.
Monster-in-laws.
Much more powerful than the types of monsters we're used to seeing around here. A number of hunters have already been hurt, some with very serious injuries.
Some have stubbed their toes.
I believe the 5th has more information they'd like to add.
Yes, sir. The other day, we discovered a strange trail in the Wildspire Waste. My opinion is that it belongs to a Rathian, but I'm not 100%. The size
it is a Rathian. The thing fucking sat on my face a few times.
Monsters are growing more powerful. And now, we might even have a new species on our hand. I highly doubt this is a...
Sounds like a plan.
Alright. I love Hook. He's the tallest and funniest man I know. You happy now? You happy now? You all nerd? You all nerd? You all beans now? You all the bee's knees? The bees didn't have knees? We don't know.
What do you suggest we do?
Science doesn't tell us.
Our damn jobs. We're a research commission. Get to researching.
I heard that, though, fuck. Hey, it's not wrong.
We need to achieve 2 things. First, those dangerous monsters need to be taken
Kins.
care of.
McKinn's redeemed, beat McKinn's. Oh, he's making sure no one can take a title off him. Sneaky. Sneaky, it's the internet's tactic.
Second, we need to pick up where the 5th left off and gather more evidence on that new monster. While you're out there, keep your eyes peeled for any clues.
I love that armor, you know.
Understood, sir. We won't let you down.
Took redeemed your Lankish title, you maniac. Rambo, what's happening? How are you? I am doing good, buddy. What about yourself? What's the crack? What's the story?
But exercise extreme caution. These monsters are nothing like the ones you've encountered. Dismissed!
You were so filled with your own self-importance that you didn't think to question that maybe you might actually die, and here we are. Go well to your grave, Tom.
Ben.
Die poorly.
Ben, I didn't
Just
die.
like you lived.
Ben. I didn't die. I'm good. You are good. Very good. It's hump day. It's grand. High rank quests, extra hair are now available. Ooh, fancy.
Look for evidence across the continent.
Oh, brother.
Rathian or not, we need to find that monster. And listen up.
Right, let's see, is there any upgrades we can upgrade?
We need to find more of our mystery monsters trail. We should check every region. You
Why
can
don't-
go on an expedition or an optional quest.
Why don't you check every region? We think about that?
All right.
Research points, R&D, waterproofing. Ah, that's cool. All right. Purchased arm. No, I'm not purchasing armor. Purchase weapons. I'm not purchasing weapons.
How's your gear holding up?
Wait a minute, that's not Gemma. That looks more like me. If I was a pirate. Received an item. Attack Jill. I don't want to attack Jill. I don't know why we're attacking them. Upgrade equipment. Can I upgrade you? What's the next level? Doesn't tell me what they are. Shit. See, I have this one now that does fire damage, but its durability is a bit shite. These ones that I can upgrade to eventually, but I need to figure out what the items are, so it's probably a monster I just haven't hunted yet. That's good. And then I have all my armor here. I wonder if I could level up my thunder resistance and everything else once I'm at it. Set bonus skills. How do I do that? How do I set my bonus skills? Upgrade! Oh, so this is just telling me what bonus skills I get from it? Right, okay. Okie dokie. Search for Rathian tracks. Tracks. Right, let's see. What's the next one? Yep, right, all the main story quests are done, so it's optional. Right, so the Pookie Pookie ambush is done. Googly-eyed green monster. That is another Pookie Pookie. You can feck off on it, tackle on you. Hunter Rathian. Lakuli Yaku. Barth Rathian. All of the Rathian. You know what? We're gonna hunt the Rathian. We'll go for this one. It is level 6. HR 11 or higher. I think I'm HR 11. I am HR 11. Yes. There we go. Sweet. Sweet to the beat. So we're going to hunt a Rathian. Actually, you know what? I might go and sort out my crafting and my items first, because last time... Because Rathians do poison. So I'm going to need antidotes. I have 6 of them. I'm going to have to keep an eye out for more as I go around. I will also need health, because they hit like a fucking truck. I have potions but no honey, but I do have a thing downstairs that makes me honey. Gathering hub. Hubber. Uncle Flanch, how are you finding tactics anyway? Yeah, clicking on it in Steam. Why am I getting a cutscene? Why is there a pig? I don't know what's happening. What is this? Gathering hub. Oh, I've never been to this place. Right. Celestial pursuit. All hunters with vivid seasonal outfits. It's the drip.
Hey, partner.
It's the drip we were all asking for.
Oh, hello.
Oh, ship. Holy ship. The strongest ship of any sort is friendship. Is this going to just tell me ones from in here? Oh, no. So events is down there. And I don't know what they get me. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Session settings. I don't want a session. Right, okay. I can just probably go back to where I was. Where the fuck is this? How high up is this ship? God. Right, so it's trade yard I'm going to. Trade yard. Nah, I reckon their shipping's pretty strong too. I haven't watched it. I've watched a lot of the original Naruto, but never went on to that one.
Okay, partner,
I know that that's like kind of the time skip.
of our mystery monsters trail. We should check every region. You can go on an expedition or
Don't you check every region?
quest. Take your pick.
Good luck out there.
I would like to buy antidote and uncle dote. Bombs, gunpowder, poison, all of the ammo.
You look well.
Well, thank you. Not in the sphere, but sphere itself. Complete deliveries. Right, they're all done. Sorted. I keep forgetting to come back and actually do stuff in this hub.
Hey.
I think this is the guy that gives me all my honey. Bum 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 bum. Fertilize. Dirty buggers. Mega potion. I'm sorry. I just lifted my honey there now. Where's my mega potions? Not pleased at all. Right, where's my wee house? Wee house is over here. Item box. Manage items. I want to pick over my honey. Which I know I have a plethora of. I don't need you. How do I just automatically throw you? There we go. I'll do it. Don't need you. Don't need you. Don't need you. Nut. Don't need you. I do need you. All of the honey. And you know what? I'll make these and then take some more. Because science reasons. Right, so we're all stacked up on the honey. Now we'll go get something to eat and go do the quest.
Okay, partner. We need to find more of our mystery monsters trail. We should check every region. You can go on an expedition or an optional quest. Take your pick.
How about you just stop phoning me and saying the same message over and over again every time I do anything? Is he giving me another quest? Row, row, row. Yeah. I keep saying I'm going to do that stuff offline as well. I'm going to do the...
If in doubt, take a bite.
optional stuff and kind of level up the kitchen, but I keep forgetting. Now we're going to go for the Rathian. Use a voucher. Yes, we get more shit. Pay with money. Chef's choice. We get health, stamina. Yes, let's go with that. Nom 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 nom. Then we're just with it. The cardboard is for the flavor. Feline Dung Master. Yes. Bum 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 bum. I think we're pretty stacked. I'm going to take my vitality mantle before I go out and tackle this bio. Oh, this is a different location for a Rathian. Okay, okay. Anything skyward? No. No, we need to go looking then. Need to go looking. Not quite chasing waterfalls. I was warned about that. Rathian. Bum 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 bum.
Look, it's that mystery monster's trail again.
But it says Rathian. It's not really a mystery monster. It's not like it's cool and you get the mystery meat inside the lunch. That is not the monster we're looking for. Ah, Rathian footprints. Goes this way. Look at me being the Steve Irwin. Tracking them down. Looking at footprints. One with nature. That's what they say about me. Nobody has ever said that about me. Do-do-do. 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 Is it good bit in the wee hole or the big hole? Big hole. He's a big boy. Rapid scale. See, look at me. Master tracker. Master. Bone pile. Bone pile. And there we go. We found him. Accidentally. I was fucking picking bones and he decided to land and attack. Stop. And I missed. And he's... What? Where the fuck did he go? Up here. The only way is up, baby. To kill the Rathian. Oh, what are you fighting now, lad? Apart from me. Batman. Now, the Rathian, I know he loses his poison ability if you take off his tail. So that is going to be my target. Well, actually, no, just hitting him anywhere will be my target. Not very good at this. But taking his tail would be wonderful. Oh, here you. You're new. Let you two kind of jerk it out a wee bit. Happy days. I do like that about this. I like the fact that they will fight amongst themselves as well with the monsters. It's not just me against everybody. It's like a squirrel weasel thing, but it's a massive. Oh, that does electricity damage. Ooh, very nice. That was shocking. Absolutely shocking. Someone found it revolting. Toby Kadachi. Ooh. Now, I know of Tori Kadachi, the streamer. I wonder if that's where the name came from. Must ask. Yep. I got whacked. I got whacked. Would you stop biting me? Oh, I messed up. Fucked it. Just getting them right in the taint. My palico has been poisoned. Fireball. Fireball. Let me chop off tail. You're hurting me. You're hurting me. And I'm absolutely stunned by this performance. Jaja! Batman! Sweet and gentle Jesus. Let's go! You son of a bitch. I was just about to do my move. You know what? We'll go for this. We'll go for it because we're leaving this area anyway. Would you ever do any real retro RPGs on stream, that is? Yes. Yes, I will. Whenever Echo S comes out for both Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9, and Chrono Trigger. 100% going to be all over them. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be doing them as well, but they are phenomenal games, and I can't wait to see what the... I did it a while back. I did the EchoS demo for Final Fantasy 8, and as an FF8 fan, it added so much to it. Like, there's bits I understood was Squall's inner monologue, but just the way it was performed made me think about things differently than I would have before. So, 100% yes. Especially with the amount of work it's been put into the EchoS stuff, because it is phenomenal. You like FF8? I know, and I never talk about it. I never talk about it, and you know this one's going to blow your mind as well. But I have a tattoo of the gunblade from Final Fantasy 8. I know you look at it and you think that's a butter knife. That's because you really like toast, and I do really like toast. But it's also the gunblade from FF8. Ah, this will be great to see. Speaking of tattoos, when is yours booked then for now? I know you're having a design back and forth. I need to get booked in for my next one as well, because although I have Egress on there now, and I fucking love him, it's more so getting the rest of the sleeve done, which I'm excited about. Can I shoot that? No, because I have nothing to shoot. Oh, we're doing fire damage. Oh, he is quite resistant to fire, if I remember right. Message tieback is waiting to fly. Oh, nice one. I've stolen Hook's appointment. Teddy, you legend. Are we all going to get the proud to be bald emote? I think we should. I think we should. Have you new ones planned? I don't. I'm trying to think of what I'm going to get for my gaps. My gaps. There's other ones in other areas that I know what I'm already getting for them. But as for the gaps on my arm, I'm not 100% sure. One of them I'm fairly sure of, but it's going to be the last one. They fell on some space. No. The dudes, please. Oh, there we go. I'm just about to die. Fuck! Should have went for health. Oh, I got up. I got up! We're alive! I'm dead! I'm alive! Don't know who he's fighting. I have a mate who actually got all the classes from FF14 tattooed. It's like those circular with the symbols around his arm, which is quite cool. I do like that one. But it's one of them ones where you see it and you're all, oh, I wish I'd have thought of that. And now you're like, well, I can't use it now. Well, you start fighting it out. You start juking it out again. Rathos, this is what happens. See when someone's hunting you and you get involved when you shouldn't be. Got a couple of fast foot. Amazing. And tell me why they're thankful in your store. You can now eat again. I feel like that constantly pops up for me just in real life. Just there's a UI in my brain that just goes, you can now eat again. You shouldn't, but you can. What am I? I'm not worthy of Her Majesty tattooed on me. See that scene where she's just sitting drinking the tea? Class. She is someone who is a great character at the start and just becomes a phenomenal character. Actually, all of them do. All the Scions are just class. I need to get back to it. I need to finish Dawn Trail. Oh, he is not a happy chappy. Or maybe he is, he was just in a hurry. Oh, no, 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 he's not happy. He's not happy. Oh, what's that? Is it a big pool of poison you just stepped into? Ralphus all about that poison life and can get poisoned himself. Son of a bitch. Well, when you're on Hitchamu... Hitchamu? When you're on Hitchamu, we'll make those cues pop. What is Hitchamu? Am I being dumb? Am I being dumb? I'm being dumb. I'm being dumb. Ain't I? Ain't I? Ain't I? Ain't I? I'm just going to let him poison himself like the dumb son of a bitch. Hit me up. That makes more sense. Make them cues pop. It's the main story quest I still need to get done. Jesus Christ. It's the constant running, I think that's doing me at the moment. I'm just about to die of death. The monster you're tracking will leave the area soon. Will he stop pacing about like a son bitch? We're gonna get going now. We're gonna get going. We're gonna get going. You've lost track of the monster? What do you mean I've lost track of the monster? He's fucking here in front of me. What are you on about? Stupid UI. Oh, I missed him! There's a guy down in London does Merman tattoos, and I want to get one on my thigh. Merman. Circle of Swords. Favorite series that would be by project. Ooh, right, very cool. Which Circle of Swords? Is it a circle of all... What the fuck is this? Is it a circle of all the swords? What the fuck is this?
One frightening monster. Those scales. Be careful, partner. This is gonna be one nasty fight.
Let them two shock it out. I'm going to sit over here and I'm going to sharpen my sword. Have you seen the gaps? Have you seen the gaps in your arm sleeve? Get a ditto from Pokemon? That sounds cool. It does sound cool. I like it. See, that's what I did before. I got the... I can't even pause the game because I'm fighting these jabronis. But he's away up there. He's away up that way, right? Okay. We're gonna go this way. Oh, no, actually we'll go up here. Right, okay. Don't know if that guy can make it up. I tell you, if you do exclamation mark tattoo, all mine will come up. But yeah, I got the Gunblade here, and then Squall's Buster Sword there. Ah, there we go, good man. Yeah, so that'll list the higher quality pictures than me just waving my arm about like a muppet. This thing is a beast. And it's following me. That's the one on my leg, the Sonic and Tails one. And that's my most recent one, Igris. The lad himself. Got his tail. Got your tail. Got your tail. Now, I made the mistake before of going to loot the tail whilst he was still there, and he gets a bit pissed off when you try and do that. So we're not going to do that today. What we're going to do is just get blasted in the face with a fireball! Yay! Don't, no stabby stabby. No stabby stabby. Healy healy. Yeah, I absolutely love tattoos. I think as well, see when there's something, see when the tattoos are something that means something to you. I think they're just good chance of risk it for the biscuit. Fuck you! I got your tail. I think when they mean something or they tell a story or stuff that you're really into, it's really cool. See when it's just a generic bro tattoo, it's just like, okay. I love nerdy tattoos. I love nerdy tattoos and anime tattoos and just stuff that tell you something about the person. Like I've been there before as well, where I've been in a meeting, like a proper professional adult person meeting, and someone's turned around and goes, "Is that Final Fantasy tattoos you got there?" You're just like, "Yep, we just became best friends." What if I have tattoos that are neither generic or meaningful? Like what? What would be neither generic or meaningful? I'm not entirely sure my tattoos are designed meaningfully. Your tattoos are designed meaningfully, they're just placed randomly, which is brilliant. I enjoy that. And the next one you've planned is absolutely unhinged. And if Moon ever comes on this chat and sees it, she will flip. I peeled my case, this is true. I have a cup of coffee. Do you love coffee? Because if so, then it is meaningful. My sister has quite a good one with a cup of tea. And it's because our mum was obsessed with tea. So to her, it's very meaningful. The Nina indeed. And boys are just going mad. Yes, lad? What's happening? I just love the cam me just walking past it and just kind of looking and nodding at me. Unless it follow me. No. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. It's all cool. I hate this carry on where they fly away before I can actually use my abilities on them. Is it fighting someone else again? No, it's just charging at me. Yes, I cut off your tail. Yes, I'm trying to murder you, but it's okay. It's all fine. It's all... Yeah, to be fair, I do love coffee. They're just art pieces I like. See that? But that is good. It's just not the generic... Yo, bro, I want a lion that's holding a clock that also has a rose on it. Because I'm an alpha. I like it when you look at a tattoo and it tells you something about the person. You know what I mean? I might just have to pop this health. Fuck it. We risk it for thine biscuit. Get me a vitality mantle already. Like their name. Just in case you forget. What was that noise? Oh, it's that fucker. Shit. I need that. Yep. Sorry. That was me. Just need that one. Used to just hash that shit out. Rathian parts broken. Our Dungeon Master Rogers, the favorite. That one is quite funny. That one's very good. But them two are not friends. They do not get on well at all. And my sister's some pretty cool tattoos. I like her ones. Her ones are very... She puts a lot of thought into hers, and they have like multiple layers of different meaning and stuff. She gets all the fine line stuff, and it's very cool. Our mum did not like us getting tattoos. I got my first one when I was 18, and she tried to scrub it off with a Brillo pad. She was not a happy camper. She fucking wrecked the healing of it, though. I might have to see about getting it redone. Right there for me. Excellent tattoo chat. Good luck on the hunting and good night, Teddy. Thank you so much again for coming on. Anyone not following Teddy, he is an absolute legend when it comes to Final Fantasy 14. He is proudly bald. And he hasn't done it in a while, but occasionally he does SMTV live or live and kicking on a Saturday and Sunday morning. So give him a wee follow for that, because that is always a good time. Don't think I'll ever get a tattoo. Is it the pain thing that's putting you off the tattoo? Or is it just not your... Because it's fine as well if it's not your vibe. Like, not everybody wants to get tattoos. I just think that life is difficult as it is.
Sorry.
And I deserve stickers.
I don't have the brains.
Ready? You 100% have the brains. Don't you ever say that about yourself. How are you getting on? Isn't that great that those shows are almost 10 years old? What shows? Live and Kid and SMTV Live? Think you should get a Monster Hunter tattoo? You know what? That's not a fucking bad idea. Would I be cool though? Would that make me cool? Ready? What is the story? Anybody's not following Ready, he is an absolute legend when it comes to both games, entertainment, high energy, and streamerbot. You're already cool. No, I'm cold. That's a difference. That's a temperature thing, not a social thing. But definitely give Ready a follow. He is probably the most impressive man I've seen on streamerbot, and his stream is top tier. Everything's smooth like butter. God, Rathian is just a dick. No one likes him. Sinogorlo? Right up, I don't know what that is. Not the pain. Doesn't appeal to me. Don't think I'd sit them. Yeah, fair enough. You know, you don't need to do it. Again, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. Oh, Mickey. Oh, Mickey. But you don't have to if you don't want to. It's fine. But I'm good. Kids are being dicks tonight, but that's normal. It is their job to test you. Only way to be sure is to get 20 of them just to find out. It's true. It's true. You won't know for certain unless you get 20. Exactly 20. No more, no less, and then you're addicted to that thing. I like the cathartic feeling of a tattoo. Maybe you just don't have enough trauma, McKins. They are all the satisfying they get. They are, and they just look really cool. And the other bonus part for me is it actually makes me look a bit harder than I actually am. So, my daughter, especially her friends, are all terrified of me because they see this big bald bearded man covered in tattoos, and she's all, "But have you looked at the tattoos? Have you seen the Transformers and the anime man that's on the tattoos?" I love the feeling. It does. It can be. Now, there's probably some areas that aren't so relaxing, but nope. I'm trauma free, thankfully. My God, McKins, I am jealous of you. Jealous of you! You absolute legend, you. You just wake up in the morning and be happy? What's that like? What's that like? Without the need of copious amounts of coffee? If so, fair play. This guy is being a penis. Ironically, doesn't have one. I know this because I'm currently situated under his taint. So I'll stab him in the jute. I'm going to pop this. Go pop it. Get that help bumped up. Right, where? Oh, where? Oh god, no, I'm not a morning person at all. Have you met my friend Coffee? Coffee is a good bean. Right, there's that big faker. Rathian is there. You're mine. What are you telling me to go over here for? Oh, I think it's just round the other way. Yeah, coffee's my favorite. See, especially days when I'm working from home and I actually get to have my coffee properly. Because when I'm at work, I just have a bit of 0-calorie syrup and coffee, and that's me. Oh. What are you fuckers doing? No, I don't think I want to go in here. But when I'm in the house, I get to actually properly sit and do me coffee, and I'm like, so good. So good. Just get to take a time, make it properly. Never like coffee. I haven't reached the stage of my age, and you're too happy in life. That's what it is, really. He is... I thought he'd be asleep. He is not asleep. He is not a happy bunny. I think cutting off his tail has made him angry. Hate coffee. Ah, but you hate everything, so it's alright. That means coffee's the best thing in the world, saying you hate it. That's like saying you hate heroin. You won't know until you're addicted to it. To be fair, I also do not drink it. That's with you all you adjusted, healthy people. Why is no one in this chat watering down dirt and putting it inside their body to make themselves feel better? Surely I'm not the crazy one here. Enjoy home coffee as much, but I enjoy coffee from elsewhere. This is true. You do like your Nero and your Starbucks. You do Shirley? That's fantastic, but never call me Shirley. La 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 la.
Oh, son of a bitch!
Right, let's Stabitha Jones escape. Let's go! No. Ricky, why would you do this to me? Why would you Jim Ross me? Why would you Jim the fucking Ross me? I've been died. I wasn't that. Rewards decreased. This sounds like life in general, doesn't it? But what we're gonna do is I think I can make more mega potions. We're going to go back out and we're going to stab him right in the fucking face. Can I get some num-num? Get some num-num. Make some num-num. Pay with money. I don't know who I'm paying saying I'm making this my fucking self. But, you know, it is what it is. Unpredictable platter. No, we're going to go meat platter. Was that my fault? It was not your fault. It was not your fault. I had no heal items, so I was going to die anyway. And Rathian is a bastard. And now I get the turkey and beef and shrimp and cheese. How did I hunt after eating all that? See, if that was me in real life and I had that massive feed, I would just fall asleep. I would just actually just go for a cape there. Oh, you gotta go out and hunt this monster? No, man, fucking wrecked. Just fall asleep in the sofa. Oh, I need to sharpen my sword. On my whetstone. La 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 la. Lad, what's happening? Herb. Do you ever see the official Twitter account for KFC? I refuse to call it X. It's not fucking X, it's Twitter. They only follow... Is it 11 people? And it's all the Spice Girls and 6 guys called Herb. And it wasn't discovered until only a couple of years ago, and everyone's like, oh my god, it's fucking genius. And if you go onto their Twitter account, it's still like that now today. It is phenomenal. It was, we mentioned during Killica's stream the other day where he dressed up as Colonel Sanders. Brilliant. These monsters been hunted yet? We've hunted some of them. And other ones are, you know what, they're resistant to the process, and I feel it's just them being rude and not wanting to be murdered. What about you, Tomahawk? Have you been Dead by Daylight recently? 7 minutes. 7 minutes are all I can spare me. They ought to get him on the flippity flop. Right, well, we need to sharpen our sword again. Jesus, it doesn't last very long at all. That's what she said. That is what she did, in fact, say. Oh wait, which one am I tracking? Rathian is down that way. Had some banging games on Sunday, some questionable games yesterday. Also do some stinkerson. Which one was I in? You were playing as Nemesis, and you were just tentacling people, and then you played some Dead by Daylight. Oh, there's my boat. Sunday, do you love being a tentacle freak? And DVD is good too, I guess. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Stores. Right, what is this one? Oh, it's your man. It's Beetlejuice. I feel like I've been hunting this Rathian for quite a bit. Like, to be fair, this is only our second monster. Now, in the game's defense on the first one, I was trying to hunt a monster that I hadn't actually started the hunt for yet. Because it told me to go look at him, and then I had to go back to start the quest, and then go back and get him. Instead of just being all like, well, you've seen him now, fight him. I was like, no. Sir, you okay? Happy days. Me and him are cool. I hope I don't have to kill him. I'm knackered. Climb the vines. Meow. Meow. Chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim chiroo. Honey. Ba-da-da-do-do-do. 2 mega potions. Right, I'm gonna rest up before, well, not rest up, I'm gonna get my stamina back before I go in here, because there's a couple times I've run on, but like dynamic going, yeah, I'm gonna kill you, and then just collapse because of no stamina left. Oh, this is up in Rathlos's wee nest. Is he asleep? Is he asleep? Oh. Oh. Oh, he's asleep. Oh, stab. Nope, nope. Things did not go well. It did not take that well. No! And I'm stunned. Low health and dead. Yet. And deactivated the landslide. He could be dead for all I know. Let's go. Yahoo! I got stuff. I've heard mixed things about the new Mario movie. From what I'm hearing, it's not as good as the original. I quite enjoyed the original. I thought it was fun. Was it Super Mario Galaxy? There he is there. What are you doing? Did the landslide knock him down here? Nice one. Right. So the trick is now to not die. Actually, I'm putting on this mantle because I tend to just die quite a bit, this guy. I know there's probably people watching as well, and they'll be all like, you know you're supposed to play this with other people on co-op, and I'll be like, yeah. Yeah, got him on the flip-flop. But there's probably stuff to enjoy, I suppose. We aren't the real... No, we are the real market. I don't know what you're talking about, Ricky. I don't know what you're talking about. We are the market. It was made for us. Coward! Get back here! What were you playing? What was it? What part of it in Kingdom Hearts was it last night you were playing? Was it Clayton in the Tarzan bit? And he was originally in the movie voiced by Patrick Stewart. But in that one, it is Brian Blessed, and we were just like, who does the voice for it? And it was all, it's like Timo Patrick Stewart, and you're like, it sounds like Brian Blessed, and turns out it was. It was right enough Brian Blessed. Gordon's alive! Lovely, lovely bit of voice acting in that game. I don't know. I don't know how I did. I have no idea. I had full health. That was some shenanigans. Shenanigans! Fun enough, I was just going to say, you gave me grief for attacking the wildlife last night, and here's you. Aye, but these aren't endangered species. They're monsters. They're called monster hunters. They're not endangered species hunters. Where you were going around attacking just innocent leopards, and you kept calling them tigers and
okay, partner. We need to find
different
more
things.
of our mystery monsters trail. We should check every region.
Handler?
Go on an expedition
Handler?
or an optional
No,
quest.
no, no,
Take
stop.
your pick.
Stop, Handler. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Do not need your sass at this point in time. Right, so I think maybe an armor upgrade. Maybe something's a bit more fire resistant. Might be an idea. See if it turns around and goes, oh, you have to hunt Rathian pieces in order to do that. I'd be like, oh, you son of a bitch. If he doesn't hunt those monsters, they could die. This is true. I'm doing it for their own health and their own safety. It was a leopard, but repeatedly attacked me. I feel like it was doing it to itself. No, that's narcissistic abuse there. That's like, you, look what you're making me do to you. Don't approve, Rick. Don't approve, Riku. Don't approve. What element is that sword? It's the element of surprise. And it's also fire, which I know is probably a bit silly. I'm sorry. You should be. Could probably go for a sleepy one. If I knew what the fucking items were. Bone tree. What's bone tree? What's the bone ones do? So that is fire. That's water. That's lightning, which to be honest is completely shocking. Let's build a bone tree one. Oi! Yeah! I don't want to equip it because I want to upgrade the motherfucker. Coral, which gives me dragon element. Dragon these nuts. Right, so I can go for... No, I can't go for water one because I don't know what the items are. Right, so I have to go upgrade equipment. And where is the other one? Sort. Sort by tree, yeah. No, sort. Sort items. Yes. So bone. You can upgrade here. That's what I was getting wrong the first time as well, where I didn't know I had to actually go through the upgrade tree for them rather than just forge. So I could probably go water. But I have to go fight Juventus, apparently. I have to go find that football team and fight them. Or lightning. Thunder. No, 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 no. Hear the mouth. What? Thunder. Might do that. I might go water. So go to wish list. Add this, and it should tell me which hunts have the Juventus and Aquasac. Post a new quest. Juventus, the J is silent. I know, Juventus. I'm saying it with the J silent. There's 3 J's in it. I spoke in good England. I don't know what you're talking about. Is that even a thing I have? Rathos. La 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 la. There we go. Juventus. Find him. See? Sorted. Mackenzie's cracking up. He's saying it wrong. Juventus. And he's saying Juventus. It's like when you see a pterodactyl. The dinosaur that flies, the pterodactyl. Also, never, ever keep one of them in your house, because you'll never know when they're using the bathroom. All because the P is silent. Chef's choice. Chef's choice. Which reaction's that one day? Mine or McKinnon's?
Son of a bitch!
I think his is a lot worse than mine. Yours and Ashley, now both. Yeah. Yeah. I feel. Which is something she never says. I don't even know what kind of thing I'm looking for. You're a tortoise. Where do you live, brother? Looks watery. As in, what are you doing? Fire herb. Sounds like there's a person Herb who works with us and we just don't want them to work there anymore. Fire Herb. I blame Flemish. I try to blame Flemish, but he doesn't accept it. He's not accepting of me blaming him. Is this a dead one? Oh, sweet. Fuck up. Hey. There he is. There he is. Silently judging me. Wafting his glorious mane of hair, knowing I'm bald and jealous. Ben here, but playing WoW. What's Ben doing there? You talk to him, you say, Ben, what's happening? I rest my case. Bean? Is a Ben? Bean's a has-been? Oh, is it this dude? Right, okay. I fought this thing before.
You were so filled with your own
Ben.
self-importance that you didn't think to question that maybe you might actually die, and here we are. Go well to your grave, Tom.
Ben
Die
Star, how
poorly.
dare you
Just
say
like
that
you
to
lived.
me, you awesome son of a bitch. I wonder if I'll get a water sack off this guy. That didn't come out right. we go. The first one. Stop that right this instance. Tomahawk's champion. Wait, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? He's champion. He beat you in the ring. 1, 2, 3. Nope. Don't eat me. Don't eat me. That is my birthright. He was born to be champion. He's a... Oh. Sorry, I did not know where I was going with that sentence. Yeah, level 2. Let's go. There can be only one. That's a film that kind of interests me, because I don't know what way it's going to go. Oh, shoot. With Henry Cavill and Dave Bautista. Admittedly, I did love the original Highlander. Phenomenal film. The sequel was probably the worst sequel I've ever seen in my life. It was absolute. If you're ever looking for the worst sequel you'll ever see, that's a Highlander 2. Plus it's WrestleMania week. Is it WrestleMania week? Why am I cooking? Stop cooking! There's a giant monster trying to kill you. Sharpen your sword. No wonder we keep dying as a monster hunter. With shenanigans like this. Damn right. Wasn't even keeping up to date with. No idea. Ooh, right, okay. Okay, let's go. Riku, Swan in here and taking the championship? My god. But it was Tomahawk's birthright. How could you? Captain Holt is absolutely right. I don't think it's happening. It's not. Shit. He moved too far away. He was too far away. When I tried to stab him in the face. Swoop, no one gets to finish their story on my watch. Cody Rhodes will be raging at you. Is he still saying that as well? I feel like I haven't kept in touch enough. I see the odd thing on social media. I've seen all the stuff about Danhausen and The Miz. I do enjoy Danhausen. I don't know if the WWE Universe has really understood him as well yet, though. It'll take time. You are cursed. But yeah, but that always baffled me about the Highlander. Where are you away now? Was first film about these immortals who live through the ages and can only be killed if another Highlander cuts off their head with a sword. And it's about the great tournament coming and Queen do the soundtrack and it's phenomenal. And then Highlander 2 comes along. For some reason, Connor McLeod goes into space. And Sean Connery's alive again. Makes no sense. And then they're actually aliens from another planet who've come to Earth to do a tournament. And they're part of some prison colony. Jesus, look at all this. Look at all this. It's normally if they pay extra for that sort of carry on. Danhausen is just wonderful. The best thing he did was acknowledge the reception to his debut by calling it rapturous applause. I know. About just constantly being obsessed with being on the truck. What is the YouTube link about? Is it something cool? Is it only for the cool people? Worst sequel is Alien Resurrection. Click it? No, I'm not clicking it while I'm streaming. I don't know. Have you watched Highlander 2, Flemish? Watch Highlander 1 and Highlander 2 and then you get back to me. It's a storyline that goes so far off. Yeah, I can enjoy it. Can't be fun. No, I can't. I cannot abide its tomfoolery. It was like, it almost seemed like the people who made Highlander 2 didn't actually watch the first one. It's like, we're going to make Highlander 2. What's it about? We watch the first one? Yeah. Highlander? It sounds like it's an alien film. Matrix 4 was not great at all, no. It's not bad. No, I know that, but I'm in the middle of a game here, McKenzie. A game which cannot be paused. Which often gives pause for concern. Underworld 5 is a complete wank too. I don't think I ever watched any of them past the first one. You can now eat again. Well, thank you for letting me know that. Can't pause perfection. You know what, you're absolutely fucking right. Although I did enjoy the fact that when Elden Ring came out you couldn't pause that, and then people found out there was a way to go in through the help menu and actually pause the game. Every time I look into a monitor, my circuit system. All the Resident Evil sequels. Yeah, but I think they know what they're doing. But the problem with Highlander, I think they tried to be serious with it. See, if you fucking move, I'm going to kill you. Well, let me rephrase it. I'm going to kill you anyway. But I'll kill you more if you move. You want your telling me. Absolute belters. I think it was just a cool thing to do. I don't know why they get so much hit. Who gets so much hit? Hold on, but... Jeez. Wrapping himself up in his own work there. Nickelback. I enjoy Nickelback. I absolutely enjoy Nickelback. I think it's because, yeah, you're right, it became the cool thing to do to hate Nickelback. And people say, well, oh, I hate Nickelback, why? Yeah, I know that they were like a pop rock group, but you can't just hate them because they were popular. Get over it. I meant the films, not the games. RE6 is less enjoyable. Have you been to a Bukkake party? Do you have a frame of reference? Have you done your research? It's like pineapple pizza. Pineapple pizza is something I used to hate and kick off about, and recently I don't mind it. Especially if I have a drink, I could take some pineapple pizza. Can't give an opinion unless you experience it. Yep. Unless you're going to have to go and experience a bukkake party now just so you can tell us if it's better or worse than Resident Evil 6. I fucking love pineapple pizza. I love you now, you're fucking class. It's pretty goated. Yeah, I never liked it. Never ever liked it. I would always kick off pineapple pizza. But just, I don't know, in recent times, I don't mind that wee bit of sweetness in a pizza now. Silverside album was so good. We thought you were going to say I fucking hate bukkake. I've never experienced it, so unfortunately I can't give an opinion. But do you know what, Flemish? I trust your opinion on it. You let me know. You let me know how you get on.
Okay, partner. We need to find more of our mystery monsters trail. We should check every region. You can go on an expedition.
Right, required materials gathered. Cool beans. I didn't realize I wasn't wearing my good sword either. Wait, it's pronounced bukkake? Yeah. I did too. You did bukkake? Ricky does. This is not the place to be talking about that. Well, what way have you pronounced... C-Hook pronouncing things is probably one of my favourite things on Twitch. Monster Bone. Right, so this is the water one. I brought this on myself. You did. You did. But I love it. You know how you thought it was pronounced? Ah, we're going to have to... No, see, the problem is now he knows. The problem is he knows. So if we go on to his stream, when's his next stream? Sunday. If we go on to his stream and ask him, he'll know how to pronounce it. And he'll do his research now. He'll practice it. He'll be just walking around his house and I go, bukkake, bukkake, bukkake. And his wife and Teddy will just be like, what? See if you were said like buck cake. I could go for more upgrades, couldn't I? But where's the one I was currently using? It was the fire one, wasn't it? Which is slightly better affinity than this one. But this one is water element. So hopefully that should be slightly better. We will look at the armor as well. Oh, we have high rank armor. I didn't know this. Oh, there we go. I was hoping you were going to say boo kick, which I honestly thought would be magnificent. Yeah. There's been a few things like in the Dark Souls games and stuff where there's been the name of a weapon. Watching how to pronounce it is just pure joy. It's pure cinema. It's phenomenal. I'm not even giving them grief. It's great. Rathian. Ooh, look at all the high rank armors. I might actually have stuff for the Blossom one, which would make me look fabulous. Bone armor. Bone. You know what I don't see though? I don't see my fucking Odegaron armor. Hey, hey, where's that in the high ranking? Recupit Tomahawk. Son of a bitch. See, this look actually does give me decent enough defense. You know what? I might just pick and choose bits of it for now. Pookie. Pookie. Best Boyd. King Beetle. Oh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Let's preview that. Jesus, look at that. Look at the lad right there. Chainmail. Leather armor. Is this better? It's actually pretty much on par with what I have. Blossom is slightly better, but not against fire, so it will be completely useless against Rathalos. Might go for some armor as well. That gives me a wee bit of a boost too, but not against fire. Fucking who is good against fire? You do nothing against fire. Rathian. If they hunt the thing that I need to kill. You know what? I could actually go for some lower level Rathians. Kill them. Steal their armor. Might be an idea. It makes me look like Havel from Dark Souls. Fucking fat Havel. Sorry, what? Fire, water types, and ground types? Yes. It's actually adult Pokemon. That's what this game is. They never told you. Oh, looks cool. I like that one. I like that one. That's pretty cool. Where the fuck am I hunting the Zora Maguro? So it's a bit of a Zora point. My boy Havel. My boy. It actually looks ridiculous. Looks slightly better, but it doesn't really give me much. Rathian's the main one against fire, and that's what I'm actually going up against. I have no Inferno sacks. That's what she said. I might do the might go for the Rathian ones. Out of the Midwest, we'll fire it on there. We'll fire it on there. If I go for low-level Rathians, Zora pops up occasionally to hunt again. Oh, right, okay. Because his armor looks cool. I love the fact as well I'm going for how the armor looks rather than how good it is. Right, so probably level 3 at least. Not even. There's one there. Let's go get him. Royal relocate. Oh, no. Go get the thing. Go get the thing. Wow. I think the music in this game is too peaceful. Right, we've already seen that like 28 million times. McKinn's beat Riku. Oh, the fight's on. Fight's on. You know what, before I start this one, I might go for a quick pee. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Be Right Back screen. And anybody who hasn't been here before, 2 games are going to pop up. And you get to vote, exclamation mark vote 1 for the first one, exclamation mark vote 2 for the second one. The rules...
is Kyobu Masataka Oniwa! As I breathe, you will not pass the castle gate!
There we go. My channel points are depleted. I concede. No! A cooldown. I had to put a cooldown on it. It was just being spammed relentlessly. But the rule is, if Flemish really, really likes a game, everybody has to vote against it. And I'll be back in a second.
Empty throne waiting
Ooh, Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Ah, well done. Well, we're going to check our top 10 and see how we're looking at the moment. To see what games have been getting the most votes. So, at the top is Final Fantasy 9, then Fallout New Vegas, Final Fantasy 7, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil 4, Advance Wars we won one, Chrono Trigger, Dark Souls, and now Skyrim has entered the top 10. Ah, very, very good, folks. Very, very good. Good shout, good shout. So, why is my camera way up there? Why hath you gone up there to corner? HubSpot? I'm over here. I was waiting to see how long it would take you to notice. I just looked up and I just seen it and I was like, what are you doing? Yeah, that is your primary position? Where the fuck did you go? Can you explain yourself, camera? You son of a bitch. And as a mod, you should really be turning around to me. Resetting HubSpot, you need to set up the Stream Deck plugin if you haven't. I don't use it. I don't use a Stream Deck for it at all. I don't know what happened. It must have been maybe tracking or something. I don't like the motion tracking on it. That's the only thing. I do turn that off quite a bit because it's just very much... I'm gonna wiggle.
Jeez.
Fuck. Latency. What's happening? Absolute legend. How are you getting on? What is the story? How was your stream? Were you playing Fallout New Vegas again? What is the crack, Latency? Anybody in Latency stream who doesn't know me, my name's Leork. I stream a lot of... for a variety of different games, but we're playing Monster Hunter and Neo at the moment. I'm a fellow Northern Irish streamer. Anyone on my stream doesn't know Real Latency. He is a real-life buddy from the same place as me and Hook. And he is streaming a lot of the Fallout games at the moment and Skyrim and stuff. He is an absolute legend, puts on a brilliant stream. Go in and mess with his lights, give him a wee follow. But anybody that raids into me goes into my Hall of Fame. And there you are up in the top right corner, twice this month so far, you absolute gent, Latency. How was your stream? How did it get on? How'd you get on? We've been dying a lot in Monster Hunter. Yeah, Fallout New Vegas, how's your stream going? Been dying an awful lot. But you know what? It's about a crack, really, isn't it? Rathian whipped our asses. And by our asses, my asses. Gentlemen, what's happening? Konami opening. There we go. What is happening with yourself? How are you getting on? Yeah, each death makes you stronger, maybe. It doesn't, actually. It refuses to make me stronger. And that's the son bitch we're after. Rathian. He is difficult because he does poison and fire damage. So I've had to craft a sword that does water damage to hope to counter him. Because after all, he's just a giant fucking Pokemon. What is up? Long time, buddy. I am good. I'm getting home from work. How's it over here? It is good at the moment. Playing a lot of Monster Hunter tonight. We've only really killed one hunt. And then the other one just completely destroyed us. We've been had a lot of flyers tonight, and the problem with them is they tend to just run away. Which I'm not a fan of. But little man, how was work? What's your plan to relax? And Cleo just burst into the door there now. She was like, "Father, look at me." Even though she's a female dog and doesn't actually speak like that. But that's how I envision she would speak if she had a voice. Father! I don't know why my dog is voiced by Matt Berry. But she is. Just accept it. Gashes? Very much. Oh, there he is. Stalking me right behind me. Look at him.
I wonder where the Rathian is.
Second ocelots. Brother! Dude, I'm so relaxed. I'm getting online this evening. I've had zero time to game lately because of work. Been so busy and exhausted. Man, get your rest. Get your downtime. Work the game, not game to work. Oh wait, it's supposed to be love. Fuck it. Game! Video games! Sure, but then my sword is being decimated, but I can see that my water splurging everywhere. Snake, dear brother. Liquid. I'm a water Pokemon. We're poisoned. Who's this shit? It's been over a month since I was on Twitch myself. Just because of work and everything. Man, I get that. There's a couple... I've missed actually a few streams myself. It was my mate's birthday last week, and then... Or the week before, and then it was Waffle's wedding last week, so... They all kind of fell on my stream night. I felt like they did it on purpose. I felt like Waffles and his wife were sitting there and they were like, "Will we have... When we have the wedding? Well, what nights does the Ark stream? We'll do it then." Fair play to them, I would have done the same.
Emotional damage!
It was emotional damage. Thank you, Doodleman, for acknowledging it. Hook doesn't care, he just laughs and giggles to himself. I am now stunned and poisoned. Am I just stunned that I have been poisoned? Is that what it is? Fuck a way off. Let me drink the juice. Would you? Oh, shit, right. We have... Fucker. Oh, you made me waste that. You bastard. No worries. Nothing's really dragging you around. Yep, there's difficulty. Proper scales in this game. You be dragging these nuts. Yeah, Rathian, I've dealt with more difficult monsters in this so far, but he has the one that is my bane. He has annoyed me the most. He's just so aggressive, and if you're on a map and you're hunting something else, Rathian's just like, no, I think I'm going to get involved in this, and I'm going to just cause you some hassle. Right then. Whoa! Come on, you walk under it, you stupid son of a bitch. What a bunch, friend. Great stream. Tomahawk, thank you very much for coming on. You go enjoy your night. Stab, 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 stab him with my water gun. Or water sword. Is water sword penis? Yes. Yes, yes. Is it doing extra damage? Buttons. Stabby, stabby, stabby next time. We're red now, we're red. We're red. My pardon gift, you tried to relinquish the title. Did you relinquish the title? Oh, fair play. Tomahawk. Retiring champion. McKen's is now champ. He snuck in there. He got it cheap. He got it cheap.
Tell me what you want. Treat. Bitch. Oh, excuse me? No. What do you say? Bitch. No. No. I'm not gonna give you a treat if you call me that.
I've poisoned myself.
What do you say?
Please, 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 bitch, please.
Remind me to give the dog a treat. Ah, she isn't on it. You know what, we could probably do it whilst we get exploded.
Appreciate the biddies.
Doodleman, thank you so much for the biddies. I appreciate it. As the song also relayed. It's almost like I made it for that reason. Right, Cleo, darling. I am in the middle of fighting a giant dragon. What do you want? You want a wee treat, eh? A wee treat? Maybe I could swap hands and do it with this one. Run around! Oh, eat the pups. She's like, Daddy, why aren't you looking at me when you hand me the food? Father, why have you forsaken me? You just go and stand in that poison, you dumbass. You dumbass. Great song. What a banger. I felt like the biddies needed to be appreciated in that way. You dodged my entire move. Yeah. I'm so lucky she actually will go to her bed every time she gets a treat. Because otherwise, there'd be no point in having the camera, because it'll be unpredictable to figure out where the dog's going to go. She was very cuddly today. She kept coming up looking for cuddles when I was working. She was a cuddly pup. You know what? You stay down there. You didn't see nothing, buddy. Climb. Climb, you fool. Nope, nope, shit, shit. And she's the best girl that deserves all the cuddles, that's true. She's not feeling good? No, she's feeling fine. She just gets days like that where she just wants cuddles. Sure, Riku was over at mine's the other night, and after barking at him and growling before he came in, she then just spent the whole night. She sat her head on his lap and just looked at him. And she was being adorable and just wanted all the fusses. At one point it was very funny though. She kept putting her paw, to give her paw. And then it was after about 20 months, I just said to her that she needed to go to the toilet. And she was like, yes. She just dived at the door and I was like, oh, she was just wanting to tell us she needed to go to the bathroom. She's been very good about it. Give her all the pets. I know. She could be. What is with all the slime that's off your man there, isn't it? It has begun, the Tournament of Champions. Right, let's go. Come on, Rathian. Destroy you with my bare hands. And not my hands with nothing on them. I have grown hands of bears. And if my Second Amendment is right as well, I'll also gain some bear arms, because it is my right to do so. Right, sir, you're heading to bed. Thanks for having me, and enjoy the rest of the stream. Riku, thank you very much for coming on again, buddy. Again, anybody that's not following my mate Riku, he has recently started streaming, had his second stream last night. He's smashing it. And if you give him a wee follow, that'll be much appreciated. We are pushing to get him a follow because he's a good bean. Stop! What's Joe doing? He's playing a computer game, keeps shouting stab. Testicles and penises. Oh, did not just dodge my move. Oh, I hate you so much. I hate Rathian so much. I hate you so much right now. Right, you're not dodging this, you son bitch. And I barely hit him. Fuck. I don't even remember when I cut his tail off. Did I even loot that? Fuck it. Let's go. Cheerio. Ooh, I could go for little Cheerios. You need to ban Happy Irish from everything. He must be an English spy. Why else would he hate pirates? That is true. He could be working for the East Indian Trading Company. Thank you. You're probably right. Have you played that Crimson Desert? I've heard mixed things. Some people love it. Some people are like, yeah. I'm interested. The third old chinchilla. Why are we gathering the troops together to bring down Burnt Toast TTV from his throne? That man is king. We shall not bring him down from his throne. What we shall do, though, is we shall log into our TikToks and we shall talk to him whilst he streams, whilst we poo. It is the only way. Welcome on. What is happening? Watch One Piece Marines all the way. One Piece is the one anime that I just can't get into. I think it's a mixture of I'm not too fussed on the art style of it, and there's too many episodes. Shit. Shit. Make sure you tell him you're putting. I do every time, and he just laughs at it. Should watch the live action. My daughter is watching the live action. She's actually really enjoying it. I should actually invest in it. Might be good. Stone. Live action's awesome. Right, okay. It's high praise. One Piece, East Blue York, I think, is getting redone by a new studio. I have heard that they're making a more streamlined version of it. Nothing over top Dragon Ball live action. Oh, Jesus Christ. That's the one way Spike out of Buffy. My God. That was horrific. I have actually watched that. It's good. Really well done. Right, okay. That's a few of these as well. Maybe I'll give it a go. I know it's on Netflix. I have seen it pop up. I just never invested time in it. Dragon Ball Z Enrich. I'm a big Bleach fan. I love Bleach. As you probably know from my tattoos.
Look at this graph!
Look at that graph. That can only be Big Boss Robinson. And it fucking is too. I'm not watching animes like so I can get invested in much live action from the start. Right, okay. It's fair enough. I just like me some animes. I like good animes. Big Boss, what is the story? How are you getting on? How's the football one?
Solid Snake. No, that is not Solid Snake.
It isn't Solid Snake? Need a good graph. We do. And worst case scenario, we'll just go for a pie chart. It's not a graph. It's not wrong either. Bleach is unreal. The Unseen Rush, I remember reading as it came out. Yeah, but have you watched the Thousand Year Blood War yet? I'm really enjoying that. See if you type on exclamation mark tattoo, you'll actually see all the tats I've got done, but one of them is Ichigo hollow one, which I quite like. Thank God I didn't use any healing items for that. Right, I need this to help, otherwise I'm going to lose me. Yes! That's what I'm talking about. Now we're going to jump up in there, we're going to stab you, and going to jump up in there, and you're going to stay there and take it like a man. Yes! Hey, about Sam following Big Boss Robinson as well, another Irish streamer. What you may not know is the character Big Boss from the Metal Gear Solid series was actually based on him. He is real life Big Boss. And all the cool people follow him. So follow him if you want to be cool too. A real boy! What's he coming back down? Come on, back down. Hit me with your rhythm stick. Accurate. See, even Big Boss says so. He knows the crack. Where is he going? He's kind of going this way and down round. He's trying to shenanigans me. Where did he come from? Where did he go? Where did he come from? Rathian. Oh. He's asleep. Shh. He's asleep. Oh, I wasted it. Fucked it. I fucked it. Thankfully, you don't lose the whole thing. It only goes down to the next level, which isn't bad. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, see if you look at the sword, it has red on the inside, which is my kind of my combo meter. And then there's a color on the outside. It starts off white, then it goes yellow, and then red. Red means it has the biggest damage multiplier. But there's a combo I kind of have to hit. And it's not even the majority of the combo, it's the last move has to hit something. And if it does, it bumps you up to the next kind of level. Not very accurate at all. This guy moves a lot. He poisons you, stuns you, bites you. He's just like a bad relationship, isn't he? He's down now. We're gonna get our combo off. Then we're gonna try and get our finisher done. So it's where we stab him and then we just jump up under the air. Do loads of juicy damage. Got him. Now it's not the Rathian that we were supposed to kill. But it'll do. It'll do. We'll go over now and we'll stab our wee knife into him. And steal his body parts for our weapons and armor because that's not weird or creepy at all. Rathian. Scale, wing talon, shell, egg, eggy weggy, bone pile. I'm actually glad we got that. So I'm going to keep hunting this guy, build up armor so I can kill him and stab him with his own skin. Monster Hunter's so good. I just love the fact that it's just so creepy, but it's such a cartoony game. It's like, you ever play Pal World? And it's like, oh, these guys are like Pokemon, and you train them to use guns and fight each other, and then you eat them. Which is something they never really cover in Pokemon. They're like, well, where did that hamburger come from? There's no cows. You killed a Pokemon and you ate them. It's a Pikachu burger.
Okay, partner. We need to find more of our mystery monsters trail. We should check every region.
The handler needs to stop that. She's to pack at him.
Optional quest. Take your pick.
Oh, what have a clue cam on? Oh, that was actually good crack. Really enjoyed that, folks. Really, really good stream. Thank you, Real Latency, and thank you, Burton, as well, for the fucking rage, you absolute legends. You've been really, really lovely. Thank you, everybody, coming on chatting. Thanks for the butts.
Thanks for the resubs as well. 29 months as well, McKins. That is mental. Great stream tonight. Thank you, Hook. Thank you as well for coming on and being on fucking stellar mod. And it's not following my buddy Hook as well. He's my best friend in real life and fucking phenomenal streamer. He's the guy who got me in the streaming in real life. In the first place. Tank. Wish it was earlier, mate. Not a problem. Turbo! What's happening? Thank you for the stream. Thank you so much for coming on and lurking. Best friend. But we're going to raid out now. And who we're going to raid out to? Oh, Wahid's playing. It's Wednesday. So that's who I was chatting about earlier on, who actually does a lot of Irish in her streams. So we have Kelka Beats, we have Mudveins, and we have Wahid. Any preferences on what anybody wants to see tonight? And we just got a wee look through and see who else is live. GG's. Annihilator, thank you very much. Sorry, I've been lurking. Not a problem. Jesus. Turbo, thank you very much for coming on and giving me a wee lurk. I'm most appreciative of it. What cool people do we have online? I'm just having a wee look here. Well, we might actually, because we were chatting about the Irish language and stuff earlier, we might raid Wahid. She is an Irish woman who lives in the United States now, so her stream times are normally all over the place. But we're actually catching her a little bit early tonight. Has a redeem to speak Irish for 5 minutes, which is really cool. And we'll be back tomorrow night to play some Neo. And what I'm going to do is go pop in a wee raid message as well. If you could throw in a wee raid message and a wee follow, that would be most appreciated. And I will see you folks tomorrow night. I'll chat to you then. See you later. Bye-bye.
Dreams collide, a fairy tale unfolds with every pixel, every turn, a story